15 for the following items to be considered on second and final reading. We've got 3 items for the public hearing. I'll read those in for the record. The first one is to amend the Mount Juliet Code, Article 2, Chapter 8, Section 8-20, Part 2, addition codes adopted to adopt the 2018 edition of the International Code and to add local regulations. The second item is to amend Ordinance 2018-11 fees for building constructions, reinspection fees, and temporary certificates of occupancies. And the third one is to amend the land use plan and adopt a preliminary master development plan located at 1305 Lebanon Road, known as the Villages of Green Hill, map 53, parcel 152, from RS40 to CM commercial mixed use PUD. If you're here to comment on any of those 3 items, we will open the floor up to you and ask for your name in the record, your name and address for the record, and we will get you recognized. If you're here to comment for anything else, we'll have public comments at the regular scheduled meeting at 6:30 if you'd like to comment on any of the other items on those. But these, by law, we have to have a public hearing on these since they're going for second reading. Name and address for the record, please.
Nathan Quinn, 402 B&A Drive. I'm here to speak on behalf of the Green Hill Road project. And we brought this forward in July of last year, 8 months ago, and we've consistently worked with the city on the requests that we've been asked of, whether we can do it. We try to, and if we can't, we try to explain why. And examples of those, these are all 100% for sale homes. It's going to generate commercial revenue from the out parcel along Lebanon Road. The streets will remain private to keep that tax burden off of the city. And the main thing that we try to strive for, and we're here to talk about, was the last amendment that put a condition of approval asking that we build a clubhouse, a pool, and a full-size basketball court. And for a 115 unit townhome, that's a tough ask. And we sat down with the elected staff and planning staff and talked through that this would cause the HOA fees along with the private streets to be $400 a month or $5,000 a year. And as a responsible developer, we have a fiduciary responsibility to not set up communities that could result in bankruptcy or having fiscal issues further down the road. And it's, we really try to take these, and we actually manage these as a company until we hand them over to residents. So there's no in between. We manage these HOAs. We make sure they remain for sale townhomes. We ensure that they have reserves in place for when they have to repave these streets, for when they have to re-roof these houses and do basic maintenance on the exteriors of these buildings. And the amenities that are on the plan that you have in front of you tonight are the amenities we've shown since day one, since July of last year, for 8 months. And we do this all over the country, and we try to provide these communities for different types of people. And this community is for people that may not want to pay for the added expense of a pool and want amenities they can utilize the majority of the year and have a place to gather and play with their kids and have birthday parties and things of that nature. And we don't want this community to turn into one that we've talked through with elected staff on, or where communities are having financial issues and can't afford to cut the grass, can't afford to enforce their own HOAs. And for those reasons, we're just asking for some consideration on this one item to have it removed as a condition of approval. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Jeff Stover. I live at 2604 Potomac Court. I'm here to speak on the same subject. I was at the last meeting when that amendment was passed 3-2 by the committee. Part of it was, my understanding is, this is to be the model community. This is the beginning of building out the corridor, moving west. It was put in. There are other communities that already you've had those requirements put in order to build those communities. So I don't see what the difference is. I do understand the financial burden, but you're also building an ideal community. So whatever you guys decide tonight is going to be your new standard. Both you and the zoning committee have said that. One of the questions I do have on this community is, again, South Green Hill Road. as I looked at the plans today in the planning department, you're going to have South Green Hill start at Lebanon Road as a 3-lane road, then go to a 2-lane road, then go to a 3-lane road, then go to a 2-lane road, then back to a 3-lane road by Willoughby Station. You're going to have 5 changes on that road with what you guys have proposed right now. And in order to get it to 3 lanes all the way, you're going to have to condemn some property somewhere. It seems that we're getting the cart before the horse here. We have infrastructure problems throughout Mount Juliet. Seems to me that before you start adding more traffic onto South Green Hill, that we get the infrastructure set first. It's going to become part of the Western Connector. You guys have already said that, stated that. I just think you need to build first the infrastructure before you start dumping these 115 homes on it, plus whatever's coming in on the backside of Willoughby and Hickory Hills, which is also going to be dumped on South Green Hill, because you're not going to have access across the railroad track on Division. So that's something to really consider. So the 2 things again, 1, traffic, 2, this is the ideal community. You guys discussed that. The zoning board discussed that as an ideal community. You guys set that last time, 3-2. I would encourage you to continue to follow that line. Thank you.
Anyone else to address the Board of Commissioners? Seeing none, we'll adjourn the public hearing. We'll reconvene at 6:30 for our regular scheduled meeting. Thanks, everyone. Oh, we got one more taker.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, my name is Gary Mabry. My brother and myself own the property. We inherited it after the death of my mother a few years ago. I just want to, introduce myself. I know that there is some controversy about the development, but we've been here a long time. My family has ancestors that go to the early 1800s in Wilson County. My great-grandparents' farm is about 2 miles down the road on Lebanon Road. Another set of great-grandparents were on Bender's Ferry Road, about 5 miles away from this property. My father attended Mount Juliet schools through the junior high. His family then moved to Donaldson. And after being there for a while, and he grew up there, of course, and started his family there, but he wanted to come back to Wilson County near his home. So we moved to the current property in 1955. I was 3 years old. My brother was 1 year old. And we've seen a lot of change around us during that time. At the time we first moved there, everything was farmland around us. There were 4 houses that accessed Green Hill Road at that point. I rode my bicycle past the Willoughby's Dairy Farm many times and fished in Stoner Creek as a kid. So we saw, subdivisions go in on both sides of us as well, across the highway from us, up and down the highway as well. When I started school, I went to Mount Juliet School, 1 through 12. And it was one of 3 public high schools in the county. And I graduated in 1969, and there were just over 100 kids in our graduating class. Since then, there are, 3 high schools that are now serving the area that Mount Juliet High School served at the time. So I just want to say we've seen lots of change in the community. I know folks who are living here now, see this as change, but we've seen, the evolution of our area go from farmland almost strictly. The only thing close to a subdivision near us was Sunset Drive, which, went behind Moss's Feed and Seed. There were no roads between South Green Hill Road and Tulip Grove Road at that time. And I think Sunset Drive, maybe one other that served a few families, was the only road between us and Mount Juliet Road. So I'm just saying that, we've seen things change. People, the subdivisions that went in around us were basically affordable housing. A lot of the folks were moving from Nashville because they wanted a better place to live for their children. They thought the schools were better in Wilson County. And so that's the reason we were seeing the growth as I went through school. And I guess this is, another step in trying to provide affordable homes or affordable housing for young families, young professionals, or older folks such as myself who may be looking to downsize as they go forward. So I just appreciate your consideration of the development. We think will be a good thing for the community. We hope that it'll be as affordable as possible for the residents who will live there, both when they purchase and in terms of the fees they'll have to pay and the cost to live there while they are there. They will be residents of Mount Juliet, and we want them to feel, just like any other resident in the Mount Juliet area. So that's about all I had to say. I'd be happy to talk to anyone after the meeting if they have any questions or want to ask me anything. My brother lives in Chattanooga, so he couldn't be here tonight, but I wanted to take the opportunity to just say hello and give you a little perspective on what we've seen change in our lifetime, and talk, looking forward, how things will continue to change in this area. Any questions from anyone?
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else for the public hearing? Name and address for the record, please.
My name is Ryan Edwards. I live at 358 South Green Hill Road. I just want to check, this is for public comments, right?
Correct. Public
Okay.
comments.
Just want to make sure I got that right. I have nothing but respect for the developer and the owner and everything they're trying to do. I understand when a city needs to grow. I've lived on that street for 7 years. And the reason I moved out there was just because of the country and just how it has that nice small town feel here in Mount Juliet. I think it's probably kind of ironic because this happened this morning. That is the sound of my neighbor's mailbox getting taken out by a truck. It's happened at least 3 times on South Green Hill. As small as that street is, if we expand it even closer to people's housing, I'm a little concerned about what's going to happen when we have accidents that end up going into people's houses. I kid you not, it's happened 3 times where I've seen my neighbor across the street, my neighbor next to me, and myself have all lost our mailboxes because of either distracted driving. I've picked up so many beer cans and alcohol on the side of the road that's just been tossed out. I'm a little worried if we add even more traffic, just how bad it's going to get. So, but at the same time, I understand the need for growth. But I guess that's all I got to say about it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir. Anyone else to address the board for the public hearing? All right. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and we'll reconvene for our regular meeting to follow. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Mount Juliet Board of Commissioners. This is our regular scheduled meeting for March 13th. We have 3 out of our 5 elected officials present, so we do have a quorum. So I will call this meeting to order pursuant to Code 622-210, and we'll proceed with conducting the business of the City of Mount Juliet. Our first item on the agenda is to set the agenda. Are there any objections to setting the agenda as published? Hearing no objections, we will be set as published. If you would like to follow along, we have wire baskets in the back there for our agenda. We have an 88-page packet to get through tonight with 5 items on unfinished business and another 5 items of new business. If you are watching online, of course, the agenda and the packets are available online to follow along as well. And with that, we have our next item of business. There's our invocation and pledge of allegiance. And I'll ask our city manager, we're on Mr. Beasley? All right. Our PIO officer, Mr. Beasley, will lead us in our invocation and pledge of allegiance.
Thank you, Mayor. If y'all will stand with me. Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for everything. We want to especially thank you for this packed room once again, full of people that want to participate in local government and that have pride in their city, Lord. We understand that that is not the case everywhere, so we don't take that for granted, Lord. We also want to thank our Board of Commissioners and our city management team, Lord. Specifically, our Board of Commissioners, they're using their time, their talent, and their resources to give to this city. Nobody is making them be a commissioner, Lord, so we want to thank them for their valuable time. We want to thank our city management for their leadership and years of wisdom and experience to get us where we are as a city. Lord, we also want to thank you for the safety in this city. We have a fully staffed police department. We have an EMS unit that's added to an already great fire department, Lord. We know that you have looked after us, and Lord, forgive us whenever we're ungrateful or we complain, Lord. We just don't know how good we have it. Lord, we also want to thank you for looking after us near the severe weather that happened about 10 days ago, Lord. We understand that there was some damage, Lord, but as far as I'm understanding, no loss of life, which we're very thankful for. So, Lord, just continue to watch over us. Please guide us. Please protect us. Please give us your wisdom beyond our means with decisions that are super important that go before this elected body and even the smallest decisions through department heads within this city, Lord. We give you the honor. We give you the praise. We give you the glory, and we give you the thanksgiving. It's in your holy and precious name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. Our next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. This is from the regular meeting on February 27th. Is there a motion? Have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, or discussion on the minutes? All right. Hearing none, all in favor of the minutes, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The minutes carry. Next item on the agenda is citizen comments. This is your one opportunity to speak here tonight on anything. You can address the Board of Commissioners on any item of your choosing. By law, sorry, I'm just the guy that has to enforce it. But by law, you're limited to 3 minutes on your comments. And that's Chapter 2, Article 2 of Section 220 of City Code. But if you would like to address the Board of Commissioners with your comments, I would invite you to come forward to the podium, ask you for your name and address, and we'll get you recognized.
Hello, I'm Jean Kessinger, and I live at 9069 Saundersville Road.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight on the Saundersville Road project. I offer a little history. This property was put up for auction several years ago. The auction was well attended by individuals and developers. We were the top bidder. Everyone dropped out at $270,000. This was not an acceptable price to the seller, so the property was not sold. The bidders, including developers, assessed that at this price, the extensive site preparation costs could not make development of the 24 acres economically viable. The property has stayed on the market since then. We've offered amounts up to $500,000 with the full knowledge that this would be a dead asset. Our understanding is the seller is holding out for at least $1 million. This is relevant tonight. Why? Well, on the December 15th memo from your planning director, the findings section number 4 states, the proposed annexation and rezone is not materially beneficial to a property owner or small group of owners and will not be detrimental to the general public. I'm here to submit that this PUD is extremely beneficial to one property owner, namely the seller. And the only reason this project is in front of you is because you're being asked to compromise a number of your own regulations in variances requested. Instead of 34 lots, if the city of Mount Juliet merely stuck to its own regulations and each lot was a minimum of 30,000 square feet and 100 feet wide, then the maximum number of houses would be drastically reduced to about 17 or less. There are lots on this plan that are only 10,000 square feet, 1/3 of the zoning minimum. We suggest this project would not proceed if there are only 17 lots. The only way the seller gets above market price is with development. The only way development overcomes the extensive site preparation costs is with drastic zoning variances to increase density. We're asking you to vote no on the variances and this project. That same December 15th memo, finding number 3, states that the proposed annexation and rezone will have no adverse effect upon joining property owners. We and many of our joining property owners strongly object to this statement. We suggest that if you or the authors of the memo were presented a plan that would require blasting next to your home on 24 acres of untouched forested ground that is nothing but above ground rock sitting on bedrock, you would not feel no adverse impact. If the commission approves this project, then the quiet area surrounding the project can expect blasting from 2023 to the end of the project, which by their plan is 2027. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Please hold the applause.
Kevin Kessinger, 9069 Saundersville Road. In 2014, we needed to evacuate or excavate a drop of 5 feet in Wilson County limestone to build in the county. Our builder, Jack Bell of Lebanon, was unable to get a building permit that would have permitted that blasting. We paid the cost to bring in a hoe ram, which, if you don't know, is an air hammer sitting on top of a big caterpillar that sat away and banged and banged and banged at our expense because we didn't use any dynamite. That same year, we ran 2,000 lineal feet from Saundersville Road to 3 houses that are come through this one lane. Again, we brought the hoe ram, who for days and days and days sat there at our expense, was over $100,000 to put in 2,000 lineal feet of water, right? So we have a couple of requests. Since we have variances that are in the plan, here's a variance we'd request. How about no blasting? How about no blasting? Any excavation should be done by a machine. It can be done, but it makes the project uneconomical. We also request that the developer conduct a survey of our water lines, monitor to see that they're not disrupted. And if the flow of water is disrupted, because we're only about 25 to 30 feet between where our water lies and the end of that property, that they would immediately repair those lines at their expense. Finally, on that point, I have reached out to James Vaden, Wilson County Stormwater Director, reached his boss, Tom Brashear, copied in Warren Associates Engineering, as well as others. We want certified documentation of current stormwater runoff and a guarantee that it will not increase. We feel the threat is so big to us because this is the only egress to 3 Wilson County residences is that road 25 feet from this project that has caused us to consult with our attorney. Next, the drawings in this plan have had several iterations. I had a conversation with Commissioner Justice and said that if this was approved, then I would be looking at the expense of building a fence on my property to separate me from that project. And Commissioner Justice had a conversation that we would have agreed at that point to go in and make a fence at their expense rather than ours. Well, if you look at the now revised drawings, what happened was that in order to make room for the road that was not considered at the last hearing, they moved the fence from where it had been planned at the 20-foot buffer right to the line. So that means that it's 20 feet closer to my property. Let me put that in context to you. I have 2,400 lineal feet in my property, 19 of 34 properties back up to me. If you take 2,400 lineal feet at a 20-foot buffer and multiply that, that's 48,000 square feet. Why is that relevant? How many square feet are in 1 acre? 43,500. So in a 24-acre project, 1/24 of it was changed without any discussion or transparency coming back to me from our original conversation, which I thought this fence was going to be setting at the 20-foot buffer boundary, like every other piece of all contingency, all of the properties around it, except the property my wife and I own. So I would recommend a no vote on this. Would love to see it stopped. Would love to be able to keep the peace and harmony that we moved to Mount Juliet for in 2010, 2011. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Yep. Name and address for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Justin Kessinger. I'm at 9707 Saundersville Road. Also here to contest the Saundersville rezoning. Can you hand those out? Yeah, I have some packages. So it's just photos. So at the last meeting, each of the commissioners said they had not seen the property. So that's what these are, is a little window into getting to see the property. So those pictures that you look at, well, I ask that you consider those in your voting. Page 1 is wetlands, flowing streams, and dry creek beds that are on our property that provide drainage to at least half of the acreage under consideration and onto our property, ultimately onto Old Hickory Lake. These natural runoffs and wetlands supporting the wildlife and property will be disrupted or destroyed or contaminated with debris from construction. The second page of pictures is of the surface of the property. And this is not an average clear field with some trees like the property at Wintry or the Murray Hill project that was approved on Nonneville. This is rock sitting on rock everywhere. That will require a ton of excavation. I defy you to find one lot that is level and without massive rock. Even if they use blast mats, the debris will pollute the air and the sediment will run into the wetlands you saw on page 1. The runoff is the water source for the various wildlife that is on our property. And that's the last page. The last page is some of the wildlife that's on our property. 3 of the 6 pictures capture a bald eagle in our trees or in flight. TWRA confirms bald eagles nesting directly across the lake from us and on Cedar Creek. You see wild turkeys in other pictures, and we know that there are salamanders that are rare on this property, and we're trying to see if they're protected. The commission has to ask itself, are we the jewel between the lakes where cars stop on the road so kids can see all the deer and drive to the country to be part of the jewel? Or are we the alternative where we're just here to obliterate all the natural surrounding in order to shoehorn 34 residences into an unfit property benefiting no one but the seller and unknown buyers who are likely not in Mount Juliet? The only way this happens is to grant a ton of variances to your own desired building guidelines that were established. That is all I have. Thank you very much for your consideration. Please vote no.
Thank you, sir.
My name is Joe Wood, live at 8921 Saundersville Road. We own house D and E. We have been to many meetings now. I'm learning all the new faces that are no longer new to me because we've had so many meetings over this property and the things going forward. And fortunately, through all of these meetings, a lot of things have been corrected, like where they were proposing to landlock us and give us a new driveway into the new subdivision. We had to fight and have people dig and find the records to show that this road has been there for beyond the 50s. But besides that, we have come to a point to where we're looking, and I was listening as people started even from the Greenway about Mount Juliet needing to grow. And I beg to differ. I heard Mr. Hefner from the last meeting very explicitly go forth and tell the numbers, the thousands of people that are still going to be moving to Mount Juliet for the projects that have not even started. I believe, if I remember, it was 17,000, somewhere around there. How the schools are not prepared for the amount of children that are coming for all the proposed projects. So I beg to differ that not only are we not prepared with our roadways, our own street that floods every single time it rains. Mr. Justice and myself today were speaking about the subdivision that was put at the beginning of Nonaville Road right onto Saundersville, how since it went in, now the road floods every time. Why is it still flooding? Because obviously the city's going to take care of us, right? But he said himself, it's still flooding and no one's fixed it. So with another project coming in, more houses, more traffic, more construction, who is going to take care of us? Because they've not took care of the road yet. Every single time it rains, we have to guess if someone's coming on the other side. You either have to flood your car out into the pond or you guess into the other lane where you can't see around that blind curve. But he told me himself, Mr. Justice, today, that didn't used to be that way until that was built. None of us want it. I can continue on. Our road cannot handle it. There's 2 places that floods. Since we've moved in, it's been flooded. There's one way into this whole subdivision, one way out. No other access for all of the houses that's in there. So what's going to happen as the construction goes to all of us? We do not have the infrastructure for this. We already know our plumbing with what water lines we have is not adequate. We none have enough water pressure as it is. So add in another neighborhood of people and see what happens to our water pressure. Everything that's coming forward, we have watched fight after fight. And I know the expense is going to be high for what it's going to take for all the requirements that's going into this project. Why is it so important to take a whole community of people? I have personally talked to most of the people in our community, and not one person, none, wants this. And I know growth is going to happen. But is this the right place? Is this the right place for this subdivision? When you have this much rock, this much concern, they didn't issue Mr. Kefner a blast permit to blast when he did his driveway. Why is the city going to be a part of this and allowing this project to blast? Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your comments.
Anne Marie Hawks. I live at 8921 Saundersville Road, Lot B. If you look at the proposed plan, my property would be surrounded on 3 sides by this new development. The home I live in is basically a former fishing cabin. I have grave doubts as to whether it would survive any blasting. My home and Lot A are both on a septic and a sewer, septic and a well. Already, any kind of runoff from behind the house runs right past my well house and down to my front lawn where it floods. If that property is blasted off, that runoff and all of that debris is basically just going to wind up in my well and all over the property. Removing that topsoil and the trees, what is there will just contribute to the flooding because, as other people had mentioned, it is solid rock. I cannot even put stake lights along my driveway because it's about 1 inch of soil and the rest is completely rock. The driveway and the yard already flood. As other people have mentioned, the road floods as well, but contributing to that development behind me would obviously contribute to that immensely. The displace of wildlife was brought up at the last meeting. On any given day, I may have as many as 15 or 20 deer in my yard. They come right up to my bedroom window, my front porch, my carport. They feel safe there because there's no hunting allowed and there's a big stretch of undeveloped land there. So they take refuge in that wooded area and for the most part stay out of the road. I have a ton of wild rabbits and other assorted animals there. I have no idea where they will go. They'll get hit, they'll get shot, they'll have to be removed somehow because there's going to be no place for them to go. The condition of Saundersville has been brought up. Again, it's a roller coaster ride. It fills every time there's a storm. Anytime there's rain, it's barely passable. It can about handle the volume of cars that are there now. If we add another subdivision, I don't see how it's going to handle that. I think schools need to be taken into consideration. I have a friend who has a son at Green Hill High School. She tells me that that school is already at capacity. I think that we need to start looking forward to things like school capacity, roads, public services before we continue to expand. it seems to be a rush to develop every last green area with no look at the cost of this. There's a look at how much property tax we're going to bring in, but that all comes with a cost. Environmental costs, the cost of pushing out long-term residents, roads, schools, and public services. Everyone on that driveway and most of the surrounding neighbors that I've spoken to plan to retire there. That's why they moved there, because they want to be in the woods, in the country. They don't want to be in a subdivision, and they don't want to be in a city. And I think that the city really needs to look at that and decide how they want to expand, what kind of a city that they want to be, and look at trying to maintain what the residents actually want. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hello, I'm Larry Reese. I was the guy that came in last time and said, I know how to blow up things. And I'm
Can we
not,
get your address too for the record?
oh yeah, Larry Reese, 190 Irene Drive, Mount Juliet, Tennessee.
Thank you, sir.
But I was trained in the military on how to blow stuff up. I'm an old tanker, and plus I'm also very familiar with heavy equipment. I've walked all over all of my kids have played in this thing. I know exactly what's up there. And guys, it's going to take an unbelievable demolition to clear this place. And I asked y'all last time, have you been up there and looked at it? If you haven't, this is not a normal piece of property. This thing has got boulders in it bigger than houses sticking up out of the ground, and then that's sitting on bedrock. The demolition on this thing is going to be unbelievable. And if you don't really know what C4 and dynamite and everything will do, I do. I'm telling you. If they have to blow these big rocks up, you're going to feel it down here. We're going to be inundated with rock and shale and everything else. It's a major issue. Enough on that, because it's going to be. I've never seen a place this rocky. And I'm from East Tennessee. I mean, this is not your normal subdivision here. Okay, another thing. I don't think you realize we live on a dead end road, and in the Tennessean Magazine, the number one campground was Cedar Creek Campground down there. It stays full. It can take up to a 38-foot trailer. Put that thing in front of a big old duty pickup truck, and you've got something bigger than a tractor trailer coming down through there, and it's solid. I also don't think you realize how big the boat dock is, the marina. It's got over 300 slots. It's got parking for over 800, and I've seen it full. And then all the roads down the roads. And I'm not talking about the 4th of July. I'm talking about all summer. One way in, one way out. Two huge issues is traffic with us. Water runoff is fantastic. The guy before me that talked about the blasting, he nailed it. And I think I can comment with authority on this blasting. And it's going to be a huge, huge mess. Traffic on it, it's bad now. But if you put this thing in, it's going to be a disaster. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Alex Petit, 108 Irene Drive, right past Saundersville Road. I'm totally against this. I lived there for many years. I used to live at 411 Lakeshore Drive. We sold the house. We lived there 20 years. It became a B&B. I didn't like that. My neighbors got against me. Is these houses, there's 45 of them coming in. We've already got a B&B across the street. Is that going to become a B&B again on all these residents? Are they going to become rental? We don't want rental over there. I know I don't know how many people here stand up if you're for this Saundersville project or if you're against it. Just let us know how many's here and pertaining to this tonight. We'd like to know. We're against it. Okay, we've got quite a few here against this tonight. And I know all of us feel the same, but I think everybody's addressed the water problem on the road. Ray, if you've been down there, or if any of you's been there, there's still a puddle today on that road, and it hadn't rained in a couple of days over the third dip. And when people get around this, they go around it on the wrong side of the road. So we need to be thinking about this stuff. Like somebody mentioned tonight, we're building a cart before the horse. I'm going to leave it at this, but I think we're getting ahead of ourselves on a lot of things tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
My name is Kevin Brown. I'm at 8930 Saundersville Road. Directly across the street from this project. I'm going to reiterate with everybody. I mean, you're looking at probably 85–90% of the people that live down this road or live within a mile or so of this area, just based on the people standing up here. There's not one person that really wants this project. There's been rumblings of, oh, we can just push over the rock. There's no pushing over this rock. He hit it on the head. You're going to blow it up, or you're going to bring some dozer that you're going to have to build on site to move this. I was literally 3 to 6 foot deep and as big as this building right here that we're sitting in. That's how big the rock is. You walk it yourself, you walk out 10 foot, you can see it. It is massive. I'm directly across. There is no way it could be blasted in my house and my neighbors and everybody around it not get affected by this major issue. The traffic can't handle it. You can't do it. There's not one person, like they're saying, that's up for this. When we had this in the planning commission, even they said this can't be done, that it's too big, and now it's all of a sudden bigger because it's the only way to make a profit. You can't make a profit. And I understand people want to make money, but this is not the way to go about it. Hopefully you're going to vote no on this. That's all I can say, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
My turn.
Yes, sir. Name and address, please.
Okay. Name is Stephen Pearson. Live at 8751 Saundersville Road. I've lived out there in that area for 53 years now. I'll fix to be 54 come June. But I'm totally against this. I'm next door to it, and that when the potential buyer for this property met with me months ago, back early in the summer, they were wanting my property too. That way they would have 2 ways of hitting Saundersville Road. One right there across from the marina, and one right there at Kings Road right there at Crown Point. I said, well, I've got 9 acres. In 1985, when I bought it, Mr. Fields said that there was only one perkable site on those 2 4.5 acre tracts that I owned, and that was right in the middle of them. So I had to build one house on 9 acres. I want to stay there. Well, they said, well, Steve, you can stay there, not your house, and just sell us the 6 acres surrounding your property. That way we still could put a road all the way through your property. We can build houses behind you and everything. I don't want that either. I've seen the blasting before. I saw the blasting at Savannah Point right there next door to the boat dock. I saw the rocks landing on top of the boat dock and the big clods of dirt and everything. It wasn't good. They still haven't built out Savannah Point. They're still building over there. That's been going on for 20 years plus. You got a minute. And like they said, the road, the curve up there has got a big puddle. There's dips. It's got puddles. And the water line was put in 1962. So it's a 60-year-old, over 60-year-old water line. The sewer line was put in 72, is a discharge line. And that's a forced main since they put in Savannah Point. But I don't think the infrastructure is going to just keep taking more and more of what we're pouring onto it. And like I say, the road's small. It's just a small hilly road. It's like a roller coaster. You up and down, and the blind spots and narrow, no shoulders. But I'm like everybody else. If they want to build, sure, build 2 or 3 big $1 million houses. I don't think anybody be a problem with that. But 45 small houses is just going to combine our problems, make it worse. But I appreciate you letting me talk, and I hope y'all good luck on this.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, Debbie Petit, 108 Irene Drive. And basically, I'm going along with everybody else. I am against it. And basically, they have said most of what I was going to say. I would like to add that not long ago, when that guy got hurt on Old Hickory Lake, they used our road in Cedar Creek Marina to bring in the Life Flight helicopter to come and rescue him. We have a lot of boats, a lot of campers that come down our road. They actually turn on Irene Drive. They get caught on Irene Drive and cannot back up. They have to back up all the way sometimes. We have a lot of traffic on our road. If you will drive down our road now, you will see where it is patched. This is like constantly needing work on. There is even a place in the road right now that has been this dip that you hit and you have to stop, or some people's car will shake, that has been approached to the road commissioners about fixing it. But my understanding is one says this is not my part, the other people says it's not part, so it's not getting fixed. So I just want you to consider the amount of traffic that goes in that road and comes out that road every single day. Another thing is, I can tell you, if you will talk to the sheriff's department in Wilson County, you will probably hear about how many times they go up and down that road. You know, the boat dock, the drinking, you know, it's just a lot that goes on that road without, I'm not against a few more houses. When you add 42 more houses, that's 90 more cars. And the subdivision where you go up to the stop sign is already backing up, and because it's a four-way stop. Wrecks there all the time, wrecks all the time on Saundersville Road. You're just adding more congestion to the area. But thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hey guys, Weldon Naylor, address is 209 Kings Road, and they're at the Crown Point subdivision just before you get to the property. And I know we've already heard roads. I know we've already heard blasting. I am negative towards this situation. I'd like to allude to a few more things. Planning Commission gives you a negative recommendation. Smart people are on the Planning Commission. Smart individuals are on the Planning Commission. There's a reason why it's a negative recommendation. And it was negative at 42. Now we're at 34 homes. Still needs to be a negative recommendation. And that was all the way through the Planning Commission. That wasn't people hitting it for a positive and a negative. It was a full negative. You know, it's been said we need a break. These people need a break. The city of Mount Juliet needs a break. On News Channel 2, we need a break. Commissioner of Justice, we need a break. So give us a break. Throw us a little bit of a bone every now and then. It would be nice. 16 of the 34 parcels that are now about to be built on this property are under a third of an acre. Completely under a third of an acre. 16 of the 34. Don't sell your city short. You're selling your city short as a commission if you approve this. Don't sell yourself short. Okay, let's do it right. Let's get it right. At the end of the day, there's a reason why that property is only going to sell for about $1 million. 24 acres. If I compare it to the property I sold 12 months ago, that property should be selling for $5,760,000 as it sits. There's a reason why it's only at 1.1, because we realize and understand the situation it's under. As far as Wilson County, UGB, and City of Mount Juliet, this is where I feel proud as a citizen. I'm glad that we've got a commission in our county and a commission in the city that will work together, that has helped us in some situations, that has helped the Kessinger family, that has helped I get fired up when I get passionate. Joe and Emma and Teresa, I feel for them, y'all. I really do. And I don't want to see them hurt. I don't see the Browns hurt across the street, our friends on Irene, everybody. Just please take that into consideration. But I do appreciate the fact that we've gotten together. I know there's been some meetings that have happened, you know, Ms. Rannis. I appreciate the fact that we're meeting with County Commission. Appreciate the fact that we've got a county commissioner that backs us 100%, that's willing to go and put forth effort and work to help remedy some of the situations, to help the families. I think that's a really special thing to have in this county. But just as a citizen, I'm happy, I'm proud that we're doing this. I can't get mad about it. I'm a big Matthew 11:28 guy. I got to hold tight to that a lot. So it's out of my control. It's in yours. So thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Hello.
Hello.
Good evening. My name is Emma Wood, and I own 8921 House D and E. I'm asking you to vote no for so many more reasons. We've spoken with Commissioner Justice, and I thank you. Everyone has been great answering questions and getting back with us. However, it's not just we don't want this in our backyard situation. It is we have invested. The biggest investment that anyone ever makes is in their home. We have invested so much money, And we are so proud of our properties. Now, to someone, they may not be anything, but to us, it's the world. And we are. Thank you so much, Weldon, for saying that, because we're actually terrified of how close we are. I've never been this close to blasting. And I've lived in the city. I've lived in New York. I grew up in Cool Springs before it was Cool Springs. That's where I'm from. And it's not always, progress is not always a positive thing. It sometimes can take the character out of a city. And that's what I really want you to consider. I know money often is the bottom dollar for so many, but you can't replace money with this for people's sake. People are so much more important. The investments we've made are so much more important. One thing that I noticed has not been, no one's talked about, the sinkholes that are on this property. I'm not sure what you got from the Kessingers, but it should show the massive caverns that are, I think they're called karst formations, that are literally on this property all over. The reason why our houses were not built anywhere near that, or that she probably sold off, Miss Deborah Watson, who is selling this property, actually sold our property. The reason why ours is built where it is because it's one of the only places where you can build where there's not a sinkhole right there. So I'm just asking you to vote no. I'm going to ask again, if you are here about the Saunders Road project, can you just stand up? This is how many citizens you have that are concerned about this project, about our homes, about our livelihoods. I have a small business I just opened up in Mount Juliet, and I'm going to have blasting around my small business and my customers. That shouldn't be. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Please vote no.
Name's Tom Dirks. I'm at 8700 Saundersville Road. I guess I'm just reedifying everything that everybody said. I've been there 28 years. I'm right on the corner of Kings Road, and seen a lot of traffic that's been built up. You got the marina has gone crazy down there. A lot of people going up and down the road. My property, every time it rains, it's like a river. There's a cutaway right up next to Steve's place up here that has taken the driveway across the street, and it's a gravel driveway, and it's dumped it into my backyard. Everyone along Kings Road can attest that my backyard fills up as a pond every single time it rains. Now, that probably happened because about 50 years ago, it was approved to build 3 houses and a natural runoff that would have dumped right into the lake. So it's very important, I guess, that the drainage, the storm runoffs, there's a lot to be considered the way it is. Plus, you got the flooding on the road. So I'd recommend you vote no. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, my name is James Mason at 250 Irene Drive. And anybody that lives on 250 Irene Drive or anywhere in the Saundersville area, we all know each other. We all, I own a skid loader. I go around all the time moving products, moving stuff that's from storm damage and stuff like that. And, we're a community, we are a family, and we are there to live without having big business or live in a community that's just packed together. We've been living out there for about 25 years, and it's home to me, it's home to all of us. And we want it to continue to stay that way. I've got a mountain cur that everybody knows. His name's Charlie. We can go down Saundersville Road after a rainy day or even after a couple of days. And there's this one puddle that everybody talks about that you have to move to the other side of the road. Well, I'm always playing jokes on Charlie. So I rolled his window down and he was riding with his head out the window. Well, we went through that puddle and I looked at Charlie and he was covered. He turned around and looked at me. And he was just like, say, Dad, I can't believe you done that to me. That dog is smart. Ever since that day, he'll look down the road. He'll pull his head in if I'm going down that road. And he'll sit back in that seat where he will not get wet. So I guess more of my story is you got to be smart when you do stuff like this. Everybody wants progress to a certain extent, but nobody wants to be tread on and be treated like they're, they don't matter. And we're all in this together. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Steve Hart, 1208 Horseshoe Cove. And just want to reiterate what people have said to support the Planning Commission's negative recommendation and ask you to vote no on the requested variances tonight. And I just want to speak to the idea of what is the purpose of having the zoning and planning restrictions that are in place. So apparently the county has restrictions that they feel like this developer doesn't want to meet. So they want to come to this board and come into the city. So they think they can get a variance of all these restrictions about minimum lot sizes and so forth, and change the scope of their project. And let me just make a comment, because I come from Horseshoe Cove subdivision that has some of these issues where we ended up with a Franklin developer who developed that back in the 1990s and put in some lots that are 10,000 square feet and less than 15,000 square feet. And what you end up seeing is issues that come from that, that there's not enough parking in the small driveways that are in front of those houses. There's not enough distance. They're asking you here to do the same thing. Instead of 20 feet setbacks on the sides, 10-foot setbacks, they're asking for reduction of lot size from 30,000 square feet to 10,000 square feet. And then ultimately, you're doing the developer a favor now, but for the subdivision life of the PUD, you're not doing people a favor by reducing the size of the lots and the setbacks and not requiring them to comply with the requirements that are already set there for the zoning. And so I ask you not to give them variance and not to vote for this subdivision.
Thank you, sir.
My name is Gerald Elliott. I have a house at 8829 Saundersville Road. Steve Pierce touched on it. The sewer line, which runs on the east side of that road, said it was built in 1972. And I was talking to some guys at the water department one day. I said, how did they build all them houses down there at the campground and put sewer in? They said, well, there's a sewer line. It's either 6 or 8 inches on running down through there. And they said it's got 300 pounds of pressure on it. It used to run in the lake, of course, EPA changed that. And he said, boy, if it goes off, it goes everywhere. And the thing about it is, in my mind, I'm thinking that it's going to have a bigger sewer line. And one of the guys on the board, I said something to that. He said, well, they'll get their money back eventually. But looks to me like before you would approve for X amount of houses, it seems like you might as well go ahead and put a bigger sewer line in there. And I know the Browns have attached to it. They're allowed to do that if you don't already have a septic tank. And the guy next to Butch Lorenz, which is 2 doors down from me. So they are allowed to do that. That's just my way of thinking. I don't know. I'm not in that territory, but don't mean to repeat myself. It just seems like you'd have to say, okay, we got to put a sewer line in there before you even approve it. That's my opinion. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else for citizen comments?
Hi, Tony Morgan, 313 Queens Drive. I'd just like to follow on from what the previous gentleman said. It's not just a matter of the sewer line, there's also the sewer pumping stations. At the moment, if you ever drive along Nonneville Road on a warm spring day with your window down, you're going to smell poop. And the dogs at the old friend's dog's home get the blame for that smell. but it's actually the overloaded pumping station. So please bear that into account along with the whole litany of infrastructure that needs to be built out before you add more load and more development to this area. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else for citizen comments? Right, seeing none, we will close citizen comments. We will move on to commissioner report and comments. And with that, I'll recognize Commissioner Justice for 5 minutes.
Thank you, sir. First of all, I want to thank everybody from the Saundersville Road and Honorable Road area that's come up here to support this project. That was so wonderful of you. I'm being facetious, by the way, so don't panic on me. Getting that out of the way, what I do want to congratulate the girls from the Green Hill High School. They were in here earlier. We honored them. How long have they been in existence at school for? 3 years? Third year, and they went to the Final Four in the high schools. I think they lost in the Final Four in Murfreesboro, and what a great way for them to represent the city of Mount Juliet. So proud of them. Just so proud. I can't say enough good about the Green Hill High School. Of course, I will tell you both of the high schools in Mount Juliet are in my district. So I have to wear half black and gold and half green on specific nights throughout the year when football and some of the other sports activities going on. So I do want to say thank you to these girls and these coaches for being excellent examples for the community and the city of Wilson and the Wilson County school system. I want to say congratulations and thank you to the staff. Chief Joey, great job. I'm sure it went off without one single hiccup. The Mount Juliet Emergency Medical Service is in full operation. We have 3 ambulances now. We have 3 backups, and we have EMTs and paramedics that are manning those, and they are doing everything that we've asked them to do. They've gotten all the training, and Mount Juliet is in the ambulance business now. And we have increased the safety, health, and welfare of the people that we serve. And not only do we have that, but we also do have WEMA, excellent organization. They've been taking care of us for many years. And as we've grown, we've pretty much outgrown what they were able to provide and without taking away from the county residents. So we're in a position now where we are giving the city of Mount Juliet enhanced medical service, emergency medical service. I remember, as does Mayor Manis, I'm sure, back in 2007, myself and a couple of others that were with WEMA at the time or with other agencies literally sat down and drew out what we thought was going to be the greatest fire department in the world. And that was 2007, and it was on a Waffle House napkin, by the way. There's actually a lot of our cities been planned on Waffle House napkins over the years. But for 2007 to 2023, we now have a fire department that is respected by many across the state. We have a EMS division that will soon be just as respected. So I'm looking at our chiefs over here now, telling them thank you for what you've done, and a special thank you to our former chief, Jamie Luffman, and the wonderful job that he has done getting us to this point and putting the wonderful people in place to continue what he started out here. So thank you, gentlemen. I want to specifically talk about the growth, Saundersville Road, about that project out there. When you probably heard me say this before, they kicked me out of the hospital, me and my mother, in 1962, and said, you got to go home. And then we came to Mount Juliet, to the same subdivision that I live in now, off of Nonneville Road, right before you get to Saundersville Road. I've been on the city commission for 20 years, and there's probably a day that doesn't go by, probably not a day that doesn't go by, that I don't wish that somebody had put a moratorium on the growth. The problem is, if that had happened back in the 70s, this room would probably be about a third full. You wouldn't be here now if somebody had put a moratorium, said, no, you're not coming. It's aggravating. It's kind of like Andy Barlow said, you know, you guys, when you're sitting in traffic, you're complaining about traffic. Well, bad news is you are traffic. We are growth. When they brought me home from the hospital in 1962, I was a part of that growth. My kids, my 5 children that I raised here, are part of the growth. City of Mountain Juliet is working. We're doing everything we can do as your representative for the people in District 1. I'm doing everything I can do to work with the developers, try and get the best product. All right. I'm going to have a hard time with this one tonight, to be perfectly honest with you, because some of the things that they'd agree to do are helping certain individuals in the community. And by turning this down, those individuals don't get help. You know, I've heard the talk about Wilson County and the roads. And you talk about how bad the roads are, Saundersville Road, how bad it is. Well, guess what? It's a county road. If it were in the city, we would have upgraded it a long time ago. So I want y'all to think about that. When it comes into the city, we wind up doing a better job because we've got areas that we can concentrate on. The county does not have that luxury. We do. So, as I said, this is going to be a tough one to deal with. I was just looking on Kings and Queens Drive. We've got 27 homes. At Savannah Point, we've got 34 homes. And on Irene Drive is 14 homes. Then we've got the individual homes up and down the road. So you're probably looking at about 80 to 85 homes on that stretch of road. Not sure we need more homes on there, but we're just going to have to discuss this and work through the process. I respect the fact that you guys have come here to help us work through this process. And we'll just see how it works through tonight. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Next up is Commissioner Hefner.
Thanks, Mayor. Also, I do appreciate everybody coming out this evening. It does mean a lot to me to hear from the citizens during these meetings. It does weigh heavily on me. As Commissioner Justice said, we'll see how this goes here in a minute. But I do appreciate everybody coming out and everybody watching online. I too want to congratulate Green Hill High School girls basketball team making it to the Final Four. It was an amazing feat in only their 3rd year in the program. Also want to congratulate Calabria or Valens Place, however you refer to it. Recently issued a proclamation to Calabria Pizza just the other day on March 10th. So congratulations to Valen and his family for receiving that. And also, once again, I want to thank our interim chief, Joey, for all the hard work that you put in to launching this EMS service. Also to you as well. So I really do appreciate that. And again, we had our first call 7 minutes, I believe, after we went live, and it was a call out to a 2-year-old that was having respiratory issues. So I'd love to keep up with that 2-year-old as they get older in life to see ultimately where they end up. You never know; they might be sitting behind this bench one day. Also, want to thank our Director of Schools, Jeff Luttrell. Met with him, as I said I would, last week at a really good meeting with him. It was more, and to Commissioner Tyler Chandler. He was with me at that meeting, and really was for me to shed some light on the growth and the number of developments and projects that we have going on in the city, and overlay that on top of the school districts, the middle school, the elementary school, and high school. And I'm not taking any words out of his mouth, but I could tell you he was in absolute shock by the pure number of residential units that are set to be built over the next 3 to 5 years. And the count is over 6,600 residential units, which represents roughly 17,000 people. So it definitely got his attention. He extended an invitation for me to speak in front of the school board and also present what I presented to him, and also an invitation to speak in front of the county commissioners, which I plan to do very soon. So again, all of this is just shedding light on what's going on in the city of Mount Juliet with regards to growth, and to allow them time to plan and prepare for it, because it is coming. And these are PUDs that have already been passed. These are not PUDs that are in the works or making their way through. These are PUDs that have already been approved by the city of Mount Juliet. So anyways, with that, I conclude my report, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Next, we'll recognize Commissioner Mullally.
Again, I too want to thank everyone for taking the time to come out of your busy schedules to express and give input on projects, whether you're for something or against it. And I think all of you have very valid reasons or points that you've pointed out tonight that need to be taken into consideration. Only have one update from the three-way that was supposed to start construction at South Rutland. This is in my district, south of the interstate at South Rutland and Providence Trail. They're putting in the developers putting in a three-way that was supposed to start on February 27th. It did not start because it's on hold due to a conflict with a gas main in the road. So the contractor is coordinating with the gas company to get it relocated. So I don't have a timeline on that yet, but I wanted to give an update on that, and that's all I have.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner. I'll add, appreciate everyone coming out tonight to address the board and give your input on this. It's very valuable for us to get input from the community. I'd also like to just take a moment and of course, remember what happened in our city a few years back on March 3rd when we encountered just an event that really changed our community here with the tornadoes that impacted our community. With one of the blessings, I guess, of social media, there are plenty of curses, but one of the blessings sometimes is the timeline and the pictures that pop up, and just to see the response from the community. Those pictures are starting to surface up now that it's the 12th, and seeing the 13th, and seeing the other communities that sent support, assets, equipment into the community. I know for me, it was, I don't know, it's a very hard event to process at first when it first happened. It's just, you don't know what you don't know when it first happens, especially in the early morning hours. And me and Mr. Martin were talking about that just a few days ago. It's 2 or 3 in the morning, and you really just don't know. And then it's sun comes up and you start to see and get a kind of event for the impact of it, the severity. And, as an elected official at the time, it's a very lonely place when you're got things that are kind of you're in uncharted territory. This is things that we haven't seen or encountered as a community. And I know to come back into town one day and just see the assets from the other communities, it's saying, I know specifically the city of Columbia had sent so many different things in. Murfreesboro, there's a picture that surfaced, and it showed on one side here was a trailer from AT&T that they had sent in that I don't know how many hundreds of meals went out to volunteers and workers in that day. And then right beside it was a tower from Verizon that they had put in. And it's a picture of two business competitors side by side, but those days and for those few weeks, they were one serving this community. And I'm not even going to try to mention, all the local businesses that stepped up, supplying food, the hours that Rehab 23 that they put in there with volunteers, and there's just so many there's other organizations that have spun up and organized as a result of what happened in those days, and the volunteers and just people with other organizations that had come in from out of state, and the comments that they were making that this community is well ahead of where most communities were at the time. And for us as a city, one of the biggest challenges we had was trying to organize and coordinate the number of volunteers that we had. That's a good problem to have in this. It's really a moment in this community. And I know a lot of the physical damage may be cleaned up, or they may be rebuilding in place, or even the middle school out there are starting to come into shape now. a lot of those physical scars and stuff may be kind of cleaned up at this point, but there's still a lot of people out there that went through the events and they're still hurting inside. And, it's every time this year that my heart goes out to them. And I know one of the individuals I talked to, and just a little child, how she was concerned that the tornadoes have eyes. And I didn't get it at first. And they explained, the little girl was concerned that the tornadoes had eyes on it, and because she couldn't understand why they went to hide and shelter and that thing, because she thought the tornado was looking for them, and that's why they went into seek cover. And it's just the way children process those things. And to this day, I see people that still respond just when it gets a tornado or a tornado warning or watch, or even a thunderstorm warning. When those things happen, the way people respond. So please, I mean, we're few years removed from the event now, but please remember the people that are still in the process of rebuilding and reconstructing, and those that have moved on. But just please remember those in your thoughts and your prayers. The other one is, on a much better note, I guess, is our Lady Hawks there from Green Hill High School, and they made it to the Final Four. I know it's been pointed out, but third year as a team, third year as taking the court. And they made it to the Final Four. Couldn't be more proud of them as a mayor and what they represent for this community. And lastly, I gotta mention, our EMS. I think it was back in, it's probably all got started back in 2011 with a county resolution 1176, which just said, hey, Mount Juliet, go do it. And, in October 2013, the fire department opened its doors. And, we haven't hit the 10-year anniversary yet for our fire department, but they continue to take on things. And I think it was just a year ago when this board passed a resolution saying, talking to the county saying, hey, we know you're struggling in some areas with staffing. Let us run the ambulances for you. We've got the staffing. We can do this. Let's partner together. And today you're seeing that partnership, on display, day number 1 on this thing. And, it's up from here. We've had talked to a lot of communities along the way. I've talked to a lot of elected officials in other communities that have done this. And the basic thing they said is, it can be a little rough sometimes getting started, but once it's up and going. And I talked to one mayor that in year number 3, I said, tell me this, if you disband it, what would your citizens do? He said, I'd be out of office very quickly. So that's the kind of feedback you want. It's working for other things, and it's another offering that we have as a city, as a community. We've said from day one when we open the station up on the north, we'll have an ambulance in it. And, we're keeping our promise. We're going to have an ambulance in that station. So I couldn't be more proud of Chief Edwards and what he's doing, and his staff and the crew that he surrounded himself with. And of course, our city manager for his guidance and leadership in all of this. I mean, the bar has been set, and I appreciate everything you guys do for the citizens of Mount Juliet. And with that, we'll turn it to our city manager for his comments.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, commissioners, and thanks to all the familiar faces and folks that come out tonight to participate in your local government. I'm sorry y'all had to get your coats out of the back part of the closet yet again. You think we learned every year? We put the coat up. I had to get Dad's wool suit out today. But thank everybody for coming out. In particular, I'm going to ask that our police officers and our firemen that are in the room, if they'd stand up for me for just a second. Okay. We want to thank you for keeping us so safe, first and foremost. So thank you so much for what you guys do to keep us safe. Okay. All right. Thank you. I'd like to thank the commission, and I'd like to thank the citizens that partner with us. When I come to work at the city 33 years ago, and the person that said this to me is probably out there listening or in this room tonight, I was the 6th police officer that got hired for the city of Mount Juliet. And you fast forward 33 years, and we're nearly at, I think, 100. At one time, we had a fire department. We disbanded that and turned it over to the county. So to think that we'd start a fire department 10 years ago that would be one of the best fire departments in the state, you owe credit for that because you shop locally within your community and you support your local businesses. So I want to thank the commission, because when I came here 33 years ago and I was that 6th police officer, we hot seated cars. Most of the cars we had were hand-me-downs from other departments and other communities. And every car came with a built-in spit cup. And for those of you that understand what that means, you only really know until you're going on an emergency call and realize the guy before you left his cup set between the the console of the car, and you end up with it in your lap. So that's a little gnarly, but that's how far Mount Juliet's come. So I want to thank this commission for stepping up in a big way to making Mount Juliet Police Department probably one of the finest police departments in the country. We have every tool known to mankind in this police department, LPR cameras, and they keep the bad guys out of our community. 99% of the crime is committed in this city is committed from folks from other communities, not those that live and reside in Wilson County and Mount Juliet, Tennessee. So thank y'all for being such good citizens and keeping the community safe. The reason I wanted to point out these two young men, Eric Newman is our chief EMS director, and Joey Edwards is our chief. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Jamie Luffman, who's at home now, who retired recently after 10 years of service. He's very instrumental in getting us to where we're at today. We appreciate that. But in particular, I want to thank the commission because to have an 11-cent property tax that generates about $2 million a year and about a $30 or $40 million budget, it takes the will of the commissioners that sit up there to say, we're going to take the sales tax revenues that we set aside for emergencies and things of that nature and put it towards an EMS division, because we truly, when you hear people say that you are why we take oaths. Commissioner, you're very familiar with this. You and I recently were sort of criticized because it said we were stepping into something that was considered private. And I had responded back and said, well, when these commissioners take oaths of office, they do it because they go above and beyond. It doesn't matter whether or not it's private or not. If we're trying to help people and other human beings, that's why you do what you do. So we understand you being here, and we see you. We're just a marriage away from being related to one another in this room. So I want y'all to understand that these folks up here do listen. But I'd be remiss if on one of the most monumental days in the city's history that such a major undertaking took place. I want to thank you personally for somebody that understands public safety. I was a police chief here. We lost 2 officers in the line of duty during my tenure as chief. And we said then we'd never forget Johnny Music and Jerry Mundy, and we didn't. And everything that this commission's done is put these folks first when it comes to public safety. We learned that during the tornado when you instantly struck a check and said, Kenny, go buy whatever you need to get us through this tornado. And we spent $900,000 basically on 2 trucks that young man had that we didn't have before. So thank all of you, because every time you shop locally in this community, you put money toward the resources in this city that enables us to do everything we do. And always, first and foremost, that's going to be to keep folks like this and those watching at home safe. Because without human life, we don't have much at all. So God bless y'all, and thank you all for coming out tonight. And commission, kudos to you. This will be a day and time, and I hope that we celebrate this forever, because it is a monumental accomplishment. It shouldn't just be a one day or we have a ribbon cutting out front and these guys go out there. Lives started being saved today because of those units, and that will be forever. So God bless you all, and thank you. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much, sir. With that, we'll move into the new business portion of the agenda. Commissioner?
Mayor, we've got a lot of people here for the Sonnellsville Road project, and I'm be willing to bet you not all of them have had dinner yet. So is there a possibility of moving the Sonnellsville Road piece up on the agenda so that we can go ahead and get that done and let them get home to dinner or whatever they need to do?
So that would be item 10.1 and 10.2. You'd like to move that up?
Yes, sir, please.
Is there any objection? I'm not hearing any objections from the elected officials. So I don't know, might disappoint the folks in the audience if we read this first. With that, hearing no objection, we will read 10.1 and 10.2 as our first items on our business. It can be found under new business under first reading. We'll read those, then I'll circle back to consent after 10.1 and 10.2. Any objection to reading these two together? I'm hearing none on that, so I'll read them for the record. 10.1, an ordinance to annex into the corporate boundaries of the city of Mount Juliet approximately 23.2 acres property known as the Sonnellsville Road subdivision, map 32, parcel 49, and located within the city's urban growth boundary. 10.2, an ordinance to rezone approximately 23.2 acres of property on Sonnellsville Road, map 32, parcel 49, from Wilson County R1 to R20 PUD, and to adopt the preliminary master development plan for Sonnellsville Road subdivision. Is there a motion? Okay, have a motion. Is there a second on the 10.1 and 10.2? All right. Hearing no second on 10-1 and 10-2, they will die for a lack of second. Those will not be read, and these will fail. All right. So with that, yep. All right.
It's dead.
And nothing's dead forever, but it is.
I go to Joy Church. It's not dead forever.
To explain, they did not get a second on that, so it will not be considered here on this for all practical purposes. This is dead. I can, yes, we have an expert here who can explain.
The project is dead for 1 year unless significant changes are made to the plan. So for instance, a different zoning or a different number of lots being proposed. So 1 year unless from tonight. Correct.
Yep. It would be the equivalent of a vote down. So if that's, but I'll give everyone just a minute to exit.
Jack, just to let you know, the next thing on there, we're annexing all of Horseshoe Cove. I wish we'd have had a moratorium 25 years ago. So we could send me some.
I will start with our unfinished consent agenda items, which is 8.1, an ordinance to adopt and amend ordinance 2018-01 fees for building construction, reinspection fees, and temporary certificates of occupancy. And 8.2, an ordinance to amend ordinance 2018-33, Article 2, Chapter 8 of the City of Mount Juliet Code, Article 2, Chapter 8, Section 822, additional codes adopted of the Mount Juliet Municipal Code to adopt 2018 edition of the International Code and local regulations. Have a motion. Have a second. Any questions or comments on the consent? All in favor of the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? These two items carry on consent. The next item under unfinished is 9.1, an ordinance to restrict, that's the way it's written. Ordinance to restrict any type of wire fencing installed on T-posts to be installed in the front and side yards on residential zone properties except when used for agriculturally to contain livestock. Have a motion? Is there a second? Have a second. Commissioner Justice.
And this is one that I think I said it the last time. I never would have expected we'd have had to have an ordinance for this, but one of the issues that we've got, I think Commissioner Mullally, if I'm not mistaken, said that she had gone by that house and looked at it. I may have been mistaken on that, but I thought that's what I had heard. But it actually takes away, the opportunity for people to use chicken wire fencing or farm fencing in residential subdivisions and using T-posts, fence posts, things ordinarily not used and that any HOA would never allow. It takes away the opportunity for people to use that kind of stuff for fencing for their yards that fronts roads. and I found out that actually, since we brought this up, there's actually 3 or 4 that I have seen in the city of Mount Juliet. And talking to Jennifer, I think this is the only way really we can address it. Is that correct? Yes. Other than that, they can go out and put farm fences around their homes in the middle of a subdivision. So, as bizarre as this sounds, that's the reason for the ordinance, actually.
Commissioner Hefner.
Question: we've got a lot of farms in the city of Mount Juliet, several active, inactive farms that have existing fencing along the sides. I'm not aware of any that run in front of the property, but my concern is you're going to be impacting a lot of farms that have actually had that fencing installed for a number of years. So are we grandfathering, or is this only for new development?
Excluding agriculture, used for agricultural.
If it's agricultural use, then it's already not taken into this ordinance.
Well, I guess these would be farms that are not active, so they would not have any agriculture on them, but they've got tens of thousands of.
Farm would take them out of this regardless. If there's an opportunity for their property to be used as agricultural, then they would not be. And plus, too, I want to make sure that this is grandfathered. We got some people, for instance, on Northwest Rutland Road that I
Right.
spoke with, and I want to make sure that they're taken out of this so that they're grandfathered in too, and not impacted adversely by this. If my next door neighbor decided to put in a chicken wire fence, I would probably not be happy about that. Fortunately, I've got good neighbors and they wouldn't do that. But obviously, there's 3 or 4 in the city that aren't quite as concerned about being good neighbors as they are about having chickens. So, in a residential area. I promise you, this would not be on the agenda if it were not for complaints that I have gotten.
I got a question for our city attorney. When I read this, I'm not seeing an exclusion for chicken wire fencing. I'm just seeing a requirement that it not be on T-posts.
That's what it says.
That's not, it's supposed to be.
Commissioner, let me get you
It's to be allowed in residential subdivisions, not just T-posts. We're not just legislating T-posts here.
Well, it says in properties zoned residential, no wire fencing installed on T-post will be allowed in the front or side yards except when used agriculturally to contain livestock. So if I conclude they put up a chicken wire fence with something besides a T-post to support it, they would be legal for less?
I would say it's not prohibited by this
Okay,
ordinance.
so this ordinance would not impact them.
So how would we fix it? I mean, I've only asked this, 4 weeks now. I think I'd probably have gotten something back from the experts saying that this is how it should be addressed, but so all I'm hearing is T-posts.
Is it any wire fencing or chicken wire?
Anything defined as decorative is what I would be. It says in here, wire fencing installed on T-posts will not be allowed in the front. So wire fencing. I'm not real sure. We don't need some better definition. Do we have a definition in our planning code for decorative fencing?
This actually wouldn't be installed into the zoning code. This is a freestanding ordinance.
Conversation.
Yeah. Could we maybe word it farming or agricultural style fencing? That way you can sort of encompass everything. Is that possible?
Y'all have this conversation and give us an answer. I don't.
To narrow it down.
I'm not sure what is intended to be stopped. If it's any wire fencing, decorative fencing, or wire fencing, there's some that looks like chicken wire. That's the hexagonal. That's
Farm
what I
fencing,
call
chicken wire fencing,
wire.
anything,
Goodness.
any fencing that is intended normally for agricultural use, as Kenny said.
You say what Kenny says, that
Is that
better.
an amendment we need to make? Is it better or is it good?
I don't know. I feel like we're trying to move people who didn't want to be in HOAs and HOAs, and we're a big HOA.
Yeah, what I'm looking for is people who really don't worry about their house looking like crap, making their house look like crap, and downgrading their neighbor's property value. So now, if somebody can explain to me, somebody in planning or somebody in legal, somebody who is an expert in these areas can explain to me how to make that happen. I'm just tickled to death, but I'm not getting a whole lot of help here.
Commissioner Mullally.
The only reasoning I've heard for this is because there's some chickens in the front yard and T-posts are upside down. I've not heard any other reasoning. I have a question about grandfathered in as well. Is there anything that could be grandfathered in?
Who's that directed to?
Gina.
It would be anything, when you say grandfathered, it's anything that's in place prior to enactment of this ordinance.
So the yard with the chickens and the upside down T-posts can remain?
Correct.
Okay. So I would think this would be a problem for older subdivisions as well. Now it says residential zoning. So would this apply to commercial zoning but has a residential usage? No. All right. I think obviously we're having trouble defining wire. Does this include a chain link fence? But it could be. What if they put it up and put some chickens in there? I mean,
Our answer should have gotten to us a long time before tonight.
If I could, this is part of the problem with this is interpreting it and enforcing it. I mean, from a legal standpoint, for what you wanted to accomplish, it clearly said no wire fencing installed on T-posts will be allowed in front and side yards. I mean, that's fine. Now, this commission has some questions, grandfathering in, what's livestock, what isn't livestock, et cetera. So
yeah, and if you're going to, if you're wanting to ban it, I don't see any reason to allow it across the back of the property if you're not going to allow it on the front and side. So I don't see any point in it. To me, it's just government overreach, and I'm not going to support it.
Any other comments? All right, we ready to vote? Commissioner Hefner?
I understand the intent. And if there's another way that it can be worded, and I don't know that we figure that out tonight. I mean, if there's some language that you're waiting on that you didn't receive to update the ordinance, maybe a deferral again. But my concern is impacting, the existing chain link fences. That's a, you remove the chicken wire and you put up a chain link fence and you throw a chicken in there. I mean, they're still going to have a chicken behind a chain link fence without a T-post. So I think there's probably an opportunity to maybe refine the language. But as it stands right now, I think it's going to have too much of an adverse effect on existing farms that have wire fencing with T-posts that run along the side of the farm, because the side of the property is also included in this as well. It's not just the front. It's not just the front, it's the side as well. There's a lot of that cattle fencing that's wire that's held in by T-post fence. So that's my concern, is you're going to impact a lot of people that are.
Commissioner Justice.
This has been on the agenda. This is the second time, and it's been advertised for how many weeks? So we've had this in front of us now for 4 weeks, I think, 3 to 4 weeks total, if I'm not mistaken. I can't imagine that this is the first time that our staff has looked at this. I didn't write it. Now, I told them what the problem was and what the issue was, and I asked staff to address this. And now I'm hearing it's crickets. So it doesn't sound to me like anybody's looked at this, made any comments prior to this to make sure it was functional, and to address the issue that created the ordinance to begin with. I understand and I agree that it is insufficient as it stands. Matter of fact, I'm going to ask for an indefinite deferral on this. And then when, I'm asked again why we didn't do something about this issue, then I guess I'll give him the city manager's number and let him take it from there. But I get a little ticked when I start getting labeled with the responsibility of something that is not my responsibility, and writing ordinances is not my responsibility. Figuring out what the enforceability is not my responsibility. Figuring out how this is going to be functional is not my responsibility. So I would expect when we have something, we have an idea and we bring it up here, that it runs through whatever protocols it needs to run through, so that when it comes to this table, it is something that is functional, something that works, and something that gets the desired result. Because I'm really tired of this. This is ridiculous.
Well, I'm not sure what to say. It was under your sponsorship, so
what am I supposed to do with it?
Thought it was ready if it was on the agenda.
Well, I asked them to put something on here to address the issue, and what has happened is obviously that what they put on here was not something that addresses the issue. So
we have Mr. Potts is approaching the podium. What insight can you give us, sir?
I've looked into some of this, and I can't find anything anybody else has against wire fencing. So I'm trying to figure out if it's what kind of wire fencing. Are you talking chicken wire fencing, or what kind of wire fencing? Because wire fencing can go into several different things. So I'm trying to figure out exactly if it's chicken wire fencing, then that's something we could put in the ordinance. But I'm just trying to figure out what kind of wiring that you actually wanting, because I've looked at several different cities and counties and I can't find anything that they have that's referring to this. So that's the issue that I'm having, that I'm running into. I'm willing to do whatever we need to do, but I'm just trying to figure out what kind of wiring, because there's a lot of wiring that goes in.
first of all, I would not say that this is any of your responsibility to begin with the exception of the enforcement portion of it.
Right, right.
So, what I'm really bothered by, Mr. Potts, more than anything else, is that, I came in here and said, look, we've got an issue. This is the complaints that I've gotten about. Actually, it was 2 different properties. Then it turned into 3 and 4 different properties that I found out later on. Don't care about the fences. I mean, about the chickens. If somebody wants chickens, that's, at $97 a dozen. God help them.
Well, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. Will you give me some time to look into this and see what I can figure out to see what we can possibly come up with?
Sure. At this point, like I said, I'm just going to ask for an indefinite, at this point, deferral. And, I'll just have them call you guys and let y'all explain why there's an issue and what needs to be done. And, why their commissioner couldn't get it taken care of. Okay. Motion to defer indefinitely.
Ms. Luckett?
Yes, I just wanted to explain how this ordinance came on the agenda. Originally, I don't know if you called me or if you had another staff member call me. Okay, but I was given instructions to draft an ordinance to prohibit wire fencing on T-post.
And that's all you got.
In the front and side yards. Basically, that's all I got. That's what's in the ordinance. And no one has called me back to have anything changed on it.
Right. Commissioner Mullally?
First, isn't it against city code to have chickens in your yard anyway? I mean, no? So if you have 50 chickens and they don't lay eggs, they can all be pets? And you can't eat them. They can't lay eggs. You can't eat the eggs, and you can't eat the chickens. So they can all be pets. All right. So one thing to think about too on the wire fence, what if there's a wire fence that don't have T-posts, they're on wooden posts? I don't see anything mentioned about that. And to me, when you're a sponsor of an ordinance, you should know what it says before it gets to the table. This is not the first time this has happened on this item. It's not the first time it's happened. I don't know who they is that's been referred to, but I would think it would be the sponsor's responsibility to make sure before it comes to the table, it's exactly how it's supposed to be. Personally, I would like to vote on this and not defer it.
Sir. Make your mic's on. Make your motion, please.
I'm sorry, I have a motion to defer
How long, sir?
indefinitely.
Indefinitely.
So God
And
comes
I have
back.
I have a second on it. All right. Any discussion on a motion to defer indefinitely? All right. All in favor of indefinite deferral, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So that carries 3-1 on the deferred indefinitely. So
Yeah.
yes, ordinance 9-1 is deferred indefinitely. And I know comments were made about chickens. So before you rush out and buy chickens, if you live in an HOA community, you might want to check first. 9-2, an ordinance to amend the land use plan. Well, before I read these two, any objection to reading both of these together? All right, I'll read 9-2 and 9-3 together, which is 9-2, an ordinance to amend the land use plan for the property known as the Villages of South Green Hill, map 53, parcel 152, from thoroughfare commercial to mixed use, and 9-3, an ordinance to adopt the preliminary master development plan and rezone for approximately 23.12 acres of property located at 13506 Lebanon Road, known as the Villages of Green Hill, map 53, parcel 152, from RS40 to CMU PUD. Motion. Second. The two items are on the table. Are we ready to vote? Commissioner Mullally.
I did vote for this first reading, and let's see. It was alluded to that this was going to be an ideal, if this passes, it was going to be an ideal project. Honestly, I don't know where that came from. To me, it's not an ideal project, as in a standard. I don't know. I'm voting on the project as an individual project. So would I prefer single family? Sure. But that's just not the situation. Again, on roads and infrastructure, if we waited on the Western Connector, at least, Andy, 15, you would start at the southern end, and so this would be the middle. This would be the northern. So you're probably talking 20 plus years.
Correct.
At least.
It'd be the last section.
The last section. So, we just don't get roads that way. Outside of capital projects, we get roads through development, little by little by little, until eventually they piece together. It's just how it works. I wanted road improvements, road widening. They agreed to do it. They've basically done everything we've asked. And again, this has been since last, what, June, July, whatever. And I really wasn't familiar with it until the planning commission, which I guess was December. Well, actually 3 times, but really December. We asked for lower density. They did that. We asked for the road. They're going to do that. We've asked for the commercial to be tied into the CO, a certificate of occupancy. They agreed to that. And on this last motion at the last meeting, to add all these amenities such as basketball, pool, what is it, clubhouse, whatever it was. My fear with that is going to be, is at what cost? Is it going to jeopardize the road? And I don't think those things to me are worth jeopardizing the road. I did vote for this first reading. I'm going to vote for it again. I would like to motion to go back to the February 27th amenities prior to the last motion. Does that make sense? Huh?
So you were motioning to go back to the
The way
amendment.
they were before the last motion, which added the basketball court, the pool, and the clubhouse, and whatever else it was.
So your motion is to the way it was presented the last time, which didn't include.
Yes,
Okay,
that's my motion.
Okay, we got a second. It's the motion is on the table to Commissioner Justice.
I'm going to agree that there is only so much that the project can absorb in expenses. We've asked for them to widen the road, and they've agreed to widen the road. And I think that's probably one of the bigger expenses, if that is the biggest expense. I don't think we need to be taking money away from that, because what we may be doing is endangering the entire project, which means we get no road improvements. So I would agree that at this point, I don't believe it's feasible for a small project like that to absorb that kind of expense where they have to do a swimming pool, and then the HOA, the people who live there, will wind up having to also absorb that expense through HOA fees. I don't think it's fair to those people either. So, it's not a big enough project that we normally would ask for a clubhouse and a pool and the other amenities as well. So I'm not sure why we're trying to put that on this one. So I agree 100% with Commissioner Mullally.
Commissioner Hefner.
I mean, I agree. I think the basketball court was a little over the top, but yep, no pun intended. But the swimming pool, I don't know what the size of the swimming pool is. I don't think we specified. We're not talking an Olympic size swimming pool. I mean, the swimming pool can be much smaller than that. And I think we've seen with past developments where we have required the developer to designate space for a clubhouse and a swimming pool to later let the homeowners decide. And I think in 2, maybe 3 instances, the homeowners came back and said, yes, we do want the swimming pool and a clubhouse. I think if the potential home buyers know what their costs are going into it, I don't think it's going to be a problem. Given that we've got very little for sale product in Mount Juliet, I don't think they're going to have a problem selling these units with a clubhouse and a swimming pool. So I would like to see that stay on this project. The basketball court, I mean, I really don't care so much about that, but that's just my 2 cents. And I think material costs, construction costs are coming down. I think prices are still relatively flat. So the developer and the builder's margins are going to increase as we see material construction costs dropping over the next 6 to 24 months. So I think there'll be plenty of profit in this development to pay for get a swimming pool built. So it's my 2 cents.
Commissioner Justice.
I'm not too awful tore up about the actual cost of building the pool. That's not even on my radar. They could probably do that. What I'm looking at is the expense to maintain that pool after the fact, and it winds up that the HOA, which are residents that are going to be in my district, and they're going to be sitting over there paying $400 and $500. And I don't think, based on what I've seen come from Four-Star Development, that they're wanting to put that kind of an adverse impact on the people that they're building the development for. I think $400 and $500 is probably way more than these people want to spend on a monthly basis to maintain a pool that they get to use 4 months out of the year. So like I said, I'm not worried about the construction cost as much as I am the maintenance cost that bothers me. And I've got to answer these people after the fact. So that's my reason behind it. It's not the actual construction cost. It is the maintenance of it down the road. So, and we've not done this most cases for, I think, what is the Hibbett Station, if I'm not mistaken?
Mm-hmm.
What we've normally asked for them to do is to dedicate ground so that if the HOA wants to do that later on, then they can put the pool in rather than us make the developer do that and make the HOA pay for something. And it'd be a pretty exorbitant cost. So, I mean, if there's land over there and we say, okay, we want you to dedicate this land for a pool. Okay, but don't make the developer do it as much as we let the HOA. They're the homeowners. Let them decide if they want a pool over there or not.
So right now we have an amendment to set the amenities back to where they were at the beginning of when we read this on first reading, which if you look at the ordinance in the packet, that's kind of where we're at the ordinance in there because amenities aren't captured in this ordinance. So really, if we pass this vote here, it won't change the ordinance. I think it'll just set it in the minutes so we know not to go back from the minutes that were approved in the last meeting and get this back in there when it comes to the thing. So if this passes, but I think you've got or someone's got a suggestion on the amenities. If we vote for this, are we okay moving forward with the vote on that? And I'll give you the floor because I think you've got a suggestion.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's an amendment to the amendment.
Well, how about we just vote, set it back, and then we'll set a foundation and build up. Is that good?
Commissioner Mullally amendment. That's the reason I'm asking.
Well, I'm just asking that we vote on this one, then move on to the next one.
Okay.
All right. All in favor of the amendment to reset the amenity package as to the way it was presented on first reading, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That carries. We're back. It's not changing the ordinance as we have in front of us here, but Commissioner Hefner, I think, had a suggestion for us.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to amend this PUD to include a designated area for a swimming pool and a clubhouse. Not constructed, but the designated area for it, and allow the homeowners to decide at some point in the future if they want to burden that expense to build it and also maintain it.
We got a motion. Is there a second on that?
Yes, sir.
Second. Okay. And we got a representative that's come forward.
Nathan Quinn, 402 B&A Drive, here on behalf of the developer, Four-Star. And we do appreciate that suggestion. Our concern would be with the space that we're already utilizing for the pavilion, the pickleball and multi-use courts, and the playground, and leaving some open grass area for just general play. We would be concerned that we would be tying up that already utilized space, that there just isn't available additional open space without removing all the amenities. So to dedicate open space, we'd have to remove the amenities as you see them, as the plan currently sits. And just to speak a little further on that, like Commissioner Justice said, it's not the upfront cost we're concerned with, it's the ongoing cost. And we manage these communities all over, and we're just trying to bring different types of communities to different types of buyers. And this would appeal to a homeowner that doesn't want to pay the added expense of that pool. And we would make sure when we hand over that HOA to the residents in 3 to 5 years that they understand that they have reserve costs set aside, because these are private streets. So that's an expense the city doesn't bear. That's the expense that the homeowners bear and the HOA bears. So they have to start filling those reserves now to set that money aside, because of the connection to Green Hill Road, this will get more usage than if it were just a residential roadway, as we've discussed in the past. So those are big expenses that they're saving for that. It's hard for us to speak to what other communities do when we're not sure if their streets are private or their metrics for managing HOAs, but we can stand by ours. We do this all over the country, and we do it well. And we make sure these are set up fiscally responsibly. And when we hand them over to the HOAs, they're cash positive, and we've already began filling those reserves to sufficient levels. So when those bills come due for new roofs, repavement of roads, and general maintenance and other things that pop up, like legal fees that we've heard from different elected officials on issues with other communities. So that's respectfully, we're not doing it just to push back. We're doing it because it'd be difficult to facilitate that request. Commissioner Hefner.
$50,000 is a lot to maintain a swimming pool. I've owned them. What's
it's a, because part of it, I don't want to get into the weeds of the HOA costs. We've sat down with multiple members and walked them through the budgets, and there's insurance costs, there's year-over-year maintenance costs because it's a commercial pool. So they have to maintain pump houses and filters. There's heavier usage than if it were an individual pool and when it's a commercial pool. So we have HOA professionals that do this, that help us generate these budgets and understand the real cost year over year. And that's who we work with internally.
Expensive pool guy. Anyways. Okay.
Commissioner Mullally?
Are you saying that there's absolutely zero space to left to dedicate for a pool, for a future pool?
I'm not saying there's absolutely zero. I'm not sure where it would be smart to dedicate any space as the plan sits right now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see anywhere.
Right.
So I like the idea of it, but over at Hibbett Station it worked. But this is just so limited. I just don't see anywhere for it to go. I just don't think it's possible. So I personally won't support this amendment.
Are there any other questions and comments on the amendment? So you're saying there's nothing that can be reconfigured, nothing we can do. I mean, I don't know, Commissioner, what you had in mind for small pool.
Well, I mean, it sounds like the construction isn't the problem, and so or maybe take out one of those townhomes. You get plenty of space. That one right there in the center, those 4 units. I don't know. $50,000 seems like a lot to maintain a swimming pool. I'm not, $400, $500. I don't know. I'm not questioning you, but it's just I am questioning you.
I'm not sure exactly where that figure represents, that blanket 50,000 figure, but we did share proprietary information in confidence because we do have competitors and those budgets are proprietary, but we did share those in person with various members of the Board of Commissioners, and without getting in a public forum into the weeds of a budget with one number out of context, it's difficult for me to answer that without those figures in front of me.
Well, I can say from my time on an HOA, I don't question the 50,000. it's insane, the cost of maintaining a commercial pool with the stuff that goes on around it. But what we're asking is not to maintain it, but to give the residents here the choice to take that expense on if they choose to, whether it's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, whatever it may be. I've seen them go for much higher, but they have larger pools, multiple pools on it. So it's quite a bit of money that took to maintain them. I don't know. I'm sure that scales at some point, that you get more from it for the amount of effort, and there's probably some fixed cost to maintaining it, but such as the guards or the crew that's there, perhaps that scales as we go up. But I know there is a base cost. Again, this isn't about the cost per se. It's just the cost. This is about giving them the option.
Correct. Designating an area of land so they can decide. And if they decide they don't want to build a swimming pool, then they have extra green space.
But that's something we can look at doing. We're comfortable agreeing to that. If it's that critical that there be space for a pool that may or may never happen. But we do know what it would cost to add that pool. And it's not just the pool. Along with that, there are health and safety requirements where we have to build bathhouses and showers and things that go with that. So and it's not the size of the pool. It's
Commissioner Justice.
Okay, so you're talking the bathhouses, the public restrooms, or I guess semi-public. I'm not sure how that would be.
Key fob controlled, most typically.
Property control.
That's correct.
Okay, HOA, and you're talking about maintenance and upkeep on the bathhouses, the restrooms, showers, or whatever may be made available for the pool area, and then the pool itself and surrounding areas, where the cost comes from. I got a problem with them taking out a unit when they may not, the HOA may decide not to put a pool in. So, I mean, if there isn't an alternative to that.
And a lot of it, just to be fair, is a function of scale. And I don't want to pivot to another project, but we are bringing another one to the Planning Commission that's closer to Mount Juliet Road off of Lebanon Road. And the unit count is closer to 200. And that one does have a pool. It does have a bathhouse. It does have a dog park. So as these scale up, then the amenities and the HOAs can absorb that without putting an undue burden on the residents. So we try to advocate for responsibility with our HOAs and go, look, we understand this is something that you like the idea of, but this is what this money and these reserves are set aside for. This is what it would really cost for you all to do something like this. Now, when we step away, they can do whatever we want, to everyone's point, but we try to make sure they really understand the true cost of making moves like that.
Any other questions, Commissioner Mullally?
Just one other question. There in the middle, where I assume he's talking about, on the north side, there's 6 units. On the south side, there's 5. Right there in the very middle.
Yes, ma'am.
It was mentioned to give up 1. I don't know how big of a pool you could get to replace 1 townhome. You tell me.
Yeah. I mean, we can look at trying to fit more space, but I think right now, if the pool would be that critical, we'd have to look at removing some of the other amenities for those open spaces to set aside space for a pool. And if that's the pickleball area, those are fairly large. We could look at doing a small pool in that area and setting that aside.
Yeah, I wouldn't agree to that. I guess my question would be, if you did eliminate some of the townhomes there for a possible pool, how many could you give up to the point where it wouldn't jeopardize the road?
And again, I don't think it's not the roadway improvements that we're concerned with. It's the burden on the HOA, and And I'm trying my best to articulate, and I must not be doing a good job. And because the streets are private, that's what generates a large amount of the HOA burden, because they have to set money aside. They will have to repave that. That's going to be millions of dollars to remove and resurface those streets. And that's why we have such a concern about this. And to eliminate units at this point, 8 months in, since July of last year, we've always shown the amenities that are here today, always. And it's never been a condition of approval. And we have had discussions about it, but we've always maintained that it would be a burden on the HOA. And $400 is a lot of money per month to ask people to pay, and it's tough for us to agree to something that we know could cause that kind of a burden.
Okay. Anything else, Commissioner? Commissioner Justice?
Just out of curiosity, I mean, how many linear feet of road are we talking about? Do you know, Mr. Marlowe?
That's what I was just trying to figure. I think
Close to over 1,000 feet.
So what kind of adverse impact does that have to the city if we said, okay, these won't be private roads, we'll make these city streets and take that burden off of the HOA?
I would probably have a bigger concern with the driveway locations, the layout. We take a pretty one of the advantages, I think, of having it be private roadways is that there's a lot more flexibility in the driveway layouts. If people are parking in, or maybe their vehicles are hanging out into the roadway right of way, we would have a wider right of way there. The whole plan would change with it being public streets. It would need to change.
They're pretty much saddled with doing private streets.
That's the best approach to get the layout and density that they're looking for.
Okay. So there's no taking that burden off of the HOA because they're going to be responsible for widening the road. I mean, not widening, but repaving. And what is it, every 3 to 5 years?
No, I mean, repaving, you could do some maintenance things every 3 to 5 years, but those are minor. Honestly, repaving it would probably be, if you can treat it right, 15, maybe 20 years.
Okay.
Would be a pretty good lifespan.
And how much is
probably
1,000 feet?
Probably $80,000, $100,000.
$80,000 to $100,000
Mm-hmm. And that's today's dollars to repave it.
Does that include milling and everything?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I missed the what does it include part.
The milling. So in other words, go out there and take the top off, and you got your binder underneath, and you come back in and put pavement down.
If they're 24 feet wide, which I don't think these are, I got $41 a foot, linear foot.
Is that right?
I think that, yeah.
If they're 24 feet wide.
I got our numbers.
And I did the numbers. I hadn't done the numbers on these because these are private streets, but like the Sundersville Road subdivision, with 1,462 feet of road, I come out to $8.38 per foot per year for maintenance. So that's roughly, for that one, it was about $12,200. That includes sidewalks.
I was going to say that the sidewalks included in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sidewalks, curb and gutter, and that's including.
Yeah.
So I mean, it varies on all these projects with the amount of sidewalks, and you put more driveways in there, limits your sidewalks.
So storm drain and
it's not storm drain, but just the curb and gutter itself.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's really no room for us to cut. And not that we need to be managing your HOA anyway. So I don't know what to do here.
Sorry, Commissioner Abner.
Sorry, I'm not asking them to build it. I'm asking them to designate the land so one can be built.
Commissioner.
And you're right. I'm not asking them to build it either, but we are asking for them to dedicate space for it. I'm just got a curiosity if they took one building, which is, I don't know, is it four? So that's 4 units. What's the actual cost? So that's $1.2 million that we take out of what they're getting for a pool that they may have never built. I'm not sure that's a good trade-off.
Swimming pools is one of the top things that get asked about as far as city.
I mean, anybody moving into there would know whether there was a pool there or not. And if there wasn't a pool there, then they would be probably say that I don't want to move here if that was a requirement. If they didn't have a pool, if they want a pool, they'd say, no, okay, well, I can't move into this because there's no pool there. That's a market. In my thought.
Again, I've seen it where we've designated, where the developer designated the land and the actual homeowners decided they did want a pool. The district was 1, Hibbett Station was 2, and there was a third, I believe. Is it just those 2?
I can remember 2.
Okay.
You said the district. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways.
We set aside land of the district
Mm-hmm.
and Hibbett Station. I think Hibbett Station is chosen to put the pool in.
They're still.
That's correct.
Okay.
I heard today they said that they were still on the verge. They were on the fence. They hadn't decided. Now they're going to do it.
That's the last I heard from them. They were going to do it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I believe they've advertised that it's there too. That they're on providing for.
They better do it.
They better do it.
Anyways.
I'm seeing, and I don't know what kind of scale this is, but I'm sitting here looking in that middle section. I see a tot lot and I see a bunch of little things that I have zero idea what they are. It says pickleball courts and then tot lot. And what is the right above is that a playground? What is that?
It's a pavilion. So it would be a covered pavilion with fans, heaters,
Kind of like what you see at Charlie.
outdoor seating, and a grill station for community events or kids parties and things like that. So we're trying to strike a balance, like we said, for different homeowners to have amenities that they can utilize the majority of the year, not just 3 or 4 months out of the year that then sit dormant and are managed.
My question would be between the pavilion and I guess that's the tot lot. Looks like a pretty good sized open space for a green open area. How big is that?
Maybe 80 by 80, if I had to just guess.
Sounds like a great pool area.
I mean, we're happy to show that as a designated pool area.
There you go. Problem solved.
Okay.
Sorry.
Ready to vote? Are we ready to vote?
Yes.
All right. If we're ready to vote on this, I don't believe I'm hearing any other discussion on it. All in favor of requiring that a space be set aside for a pool?
A space or the space that was
It'll
be the
motion
space,
was
but
a
it'll be the
space.
It'll be that space, but it'll be that we'll designate a space.
If you look at that map, there ain't no other space left. So no, there's a pool.
Commissioner, what was the motion that you?
The motion was for a clubhouse and a pool.
Yeah.
Okay. I apologize. I didn't realize that.
But I mean, there's, if it's going to be where that cabana's at, maybe that's.
It'd probably be modified. They'd probably have to modify to add bathhouses on one side of that to make the pool work and a room for the
I'd be
pumps.
fine to remove the language to add the clubhouse and just dedicate the pool area and modify the cabana.
That's fair.
I'll support that. I second it.
Okay. Well, I think that's. We're still talking about the amendment that he and I can.
We're talking about the original amendment, the second amendment to this item, which was the, oh, I asked the city recorder, what have you got?
Okay, the amendment has been amended. It was swimming pool and clubhouse and allow the homeowners to make the decision. Now I have it as to allow space for a pool and modify the cabana to include restrooms.
If the HOA decides not, that's not going to be, that's, the HOA has to
Yeah.
do that, not
Yeah,
the
we're-
developer.
Yeah, that's, yeah, if there's a pool.
Correct.
You good?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. So all in favor of the requirement for the developer to set aside land for the pool and modify the cabana with restrooms as needed if a pool is selected, I guess is the right way. Consider recorder, read it again, just to make sure we're on the same page.
I have designate an area for a space for a pool and modify the cabana to include restrooms should the HOA decide to build the pool.
All right. All in favor of the second amendment, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that carries. Now we're on to the ordinance that's twice amended, and that's specifically an amendment to 9.3. Any other questions or comments on this? Are we ready to vote? All right. With that, all in favor of 9.2 and 9.3 as twice amended, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That carries. Congratulations. We have already read 10.1 and 10.2. So the next order of business is 10.3, an ordinance for a major amendment to the preliminary master development plan, PMDP, for the Tomlinson Point Plan Unit Development PUD being located at 2844 Curd Road, map 54, parcel 73, 81, and 82.02 in the city of Mount Juliet, Wilson County, Tennessee.
Motion.
Have a motion?
Second.
And a second. 10.3 is on the table. Any questions or comments before we vote? Got Commissioner Mullally?
I got two of these. Is there a difference or is there just same? I guess they're the same. All right, this came before September 22nd that permitted more secondary materials and amenities to the 66 CO. So tonight, it's basically a request for road network and lot layout, if I'm just understanding right. So the average lot is increasing from 8,600 square feet to 11,000 plus square feet. Okay. Density is down from 245 to 216. The open space is reduced, for improved open space is reduced, which is now from 11 to 13%. The total open space increases from 20 acres to 22 and a half acres. So I understand that. The 8,400 square foot minimum lot is removed. So I don't understand if the average lot increases, why remove that? I'm not understanding that. And then I question the lots that encroach into the buffer area, 33 and 34 and 41 to 45. And has the school bus template been done? Do you know?
On the cul-de-sacs?
Yeah, whatever the request was made to do the school bus template.
Yes, that would be required as part of the approval plans.
Oh, so that'll be done at a later point?
Yeah, that would be done
Okay.
in the site plans.
All right, so who can answer the question, why remove a minimum of 8,400 square foot if the average lot sizes are increasing.
Sure. My name is Mike Burton. I work for Toll Brothers, the applicant, and I live at 2448 West Clay Drive. So with respect to the one lot size lot type that was removed, that was the smallest lot type that was proposed on the plan. And it also was a non-typical lot, whereas two lots next to each other would share a driveway. And that wasn't something that we wanted to continue forward on this plan. And
Okay.
with respect to the buffer and encroachment of lots, there was a previous condition on the plan where there were, I don't know, 20 lots or so, plus or minus, that were encroached or adjacent to the city parkland. And in lieu of doing a buffer there, there was a proposed fence that was approved with the original zoning case. We have since only have now 2 lots that adjoin that property. And where those 2 lots are, there will be a fence that's HOA. The rest of the area will either have a natural buffer if it meets the specification of the ordinance, or a replanted buffer. But currently, we're trying to save as much trees along that area as possible.
Okay, so the buffer will not be on the individual.
Correct. There will be a fence
property.
on those 2 lots.
Okay. So there's not a minimum square foot lot size
There are
now?
still minimums, but based on our current plan, our average has increased from 8,600
Mhm.
to 11,500. So we have replanned the community to have much larger lot sizes.
But there won't be any less than 8,400.
The minimum lot, there are lots that are as low as 7,524 square feet. That's the minimum, which was a lot type that was under the original zoning.
Okay. All right. I guess that was all I had.
Any other questions for the applicant? Mr. Justice?
Once again, in my district, and I would actually like to compliment Toll Brothers and Lawson Associates. Very seldom do we see the actual averages after it's already been approved. You come back and see the actual averages raised, increased. So thank you for that. You guys have probably done something that I don't know that's in the last 5 years that I've seen done. So congratulations. For those of you that aren't familiar with what we're talking about, it's Tomlinson Point subdivision, and Tomlinson Point is the property that was bought from Mr. Tomlinson for the park area. And excuse me, when it was all originally designated, there was one section that come off of Beckwith Road that was actually going into the subdivision. And it's going to be out of 54 acres that was actually purchased by the city of Mount Juliet. 20 of those 54 were sold. So, and I don't remember the actual, I think it was 975,000. We wound up getting approximately 475,000 from the developer, purchased that 20 acres. Then the city of Mount Juliet is not going to be responsible for the roads, actually. The development will be responsible for the roads, be responsible for building the bathrooms at the new city park that will be in that area, and the parking. So the net that the taxpayers are going to be out for the new city park of 39 acres in that area is going to be around $200,000. So at one point we were out here getting bids, and we want you to buy our land. Here's my 13 acres. Give me 2.3 million. The city of Mount Juliet was able to negotiate and work through this process, and we wound up with a city park. The net cost of the city park is about $200,000 for 40 acres, 39 acres. So to the staff and to this commission, good job. That's how you save taxpayers' money. So it was, and then we're fortunate enough to get a quality builder like Toll Brothers to come in, and a quality engineering group like Lawson Associates to come in. And the people that obviously care about the the density and the community. So thank y'all.
I will commend the project too. They did lower the density on it, but in addition to lowering the density, they trimmed out almost 2,000 linear feet of road frontage too. So that is, by my math, comes out current prices roughly around about $17,000 annually year saving on road cost, which if you're doing 2.5 people per home in this, a population of 480, it's going to only generate state street aid about the same amount of money, $16,800. So this is probably, sometimes we just see density reduced and we're left with the same road network to try to maintain with less people. So in this case, they've reduced the density and they've reduced the burden to the taxpayers ongoing for this as well. So I commend them for that as well on this. Any other questions or comments before we vote? Commissioner Hefner.
Mr. Barlow, did you say that we're going to get sign off on these cul-de-sacs that are going to be able to accommodate buses, school buses?
Yeah, so our cul-de-sacs, as standard, are designed to accommodate buses, small trucks, moving trucks, things like that.
Okay, but
Yeah.
okay. Because
Yeah.
I know when I met with Luttrell, he did indicate that more and more parents are requesting curbside pickup for their children. Yes. So I apologize to him. I didn't have the maps ready to show him on this site plan, but he asked that if you could forward a copy of them. So I'd ask that there's a contingency placed on the approval would be based on approval by the school board. I know fire trucks, it's all rated, but there was a question that came up during the planning commission by Chairman Winchester to double check that. So if you don't mind,
Sure. Yeah, we can.
adding that would be
The
great. Just to make
construction
sure the
plans
school
are not
buses can
approved
turn
yet,
around
so.
on the cul-de-sac.
So as requested by Planning Commissioner Winchester, we did run new templates verifying that the cul-de-sac, the one specifically that he mentioned was a temporary cul-de-sac. It is proposed to continue north to Lebanon Pike Road as development occurs, if it occurs. We've run those templates. It verifies that it meets city code, meets city standard. Fire truck is the longest vehicle typically in the template. Bus is 15 feet.
45.
45? Okay. Yeah, so it meets the radius and the turning requirements with flying colors.
Okay.
Any questions or comments? All in favor of 9.3 as presented, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That carries on first reading. All right. Next item on the agenda is 10.4 and ordinance to amend the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget ordinance 2022-32 to recognize revenue from the sale of seized weapons and appropriate funds to the police department's weapons supply line. Motion and a second. Any questions or comments? All in favor of item 10.4, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? That's carries. Then we move into resolutions. We have a third one. Oh, I'm sorry, 10A1, a resolution declaring the City of Mount Juliet Police Department abandoned property sale proceeds to be distributed as allowed by law. Have a motion? Any questions or comments? All in favor of 10A1, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? That carries. 10A2, declare IT property as surplus and sell on GovDeals. Have a motion? Second. Any questions or comments? All in favor of 10A2, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? 10A2 also carries. 10A3, I believe this was probably added at some point. A resolution establishing an official city newsletter to be distributed by the City of Mount Juliet.
Motion.
Motion second. The item's on the table. Commissioner Hefner.
Yeah, I sponsored this. Thanks, Mayor. So what kind of driving this, I've had several constituents reach out to me to ask if I was going to put together a newsletter. I'm certainly open and willing to do that. But I thought before we have multiple newsletters potentially going out, I approached Mr. Martin and Mr. Beasley a couple of months ago about this. And what I wanted to do and why I sponsored this resolution is I want to make sure it's the will of this body that this is something that we want to see done. I don't want it to just be Commissioner Hefner up here saying, you know, I think we should put out a citywide newsletter. If it's something that this body doesn't feel like we need to do, then I'm fine with that. I think personally, you know, and as an elected official, the city needs to put up some official news article or some news piece that's fact-based, that has been fully vetted by Mr. Martin and Mr. Beasley. And the frequency of those newsletters can go out to be determined if it's monthly or quarterly. This would also allow any of the commissioners and the mayor to contribute to that newsletter as well. So that's really kind of the basis for it. And I'm open to questions, comments, suggestions, or straight on vote.
Well, I can say from my newsletter that it's a time commitment for sure to be able to pull all that information together and piece it and send it and distribute it. And and this would be a project for Mr. Beasley.
Correct.
Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Mullally.
Would you be proposing that only one is done total? Like, because I put out my own newsletter, the mayor does. Okay, I just want to clarify that. All right. Yeah, I think this is great news. I think this city should be providing this. Is there a budget?
Yeah, Mayor and Commission, Mr. Beasley and I have talked, unlike in years past where we used to do it years ago and it's a mail out type with technology and all today, it'd more or less be electronic version. So it'd just be more time consumption than it would be anything. No, nothing through the postal service or paper documents, things of that nature. It'd be mainly just modern day technology. Is that correct?
Well, has any thought been put into how much time would be allotted to pull this thing together, to put it together and do the research, wait for email answers? Is that been considered about how much it would cost as far as time?
Mr. Beasley, do you have anything to add?
So I try to streamline the process. When I send Kenny's out, I will go through my own Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Nextdoor post and see what is scheduled, and I'll condense that into something that's a little more readable through a weekly newsletter. Of course, that would be a time commitment from you all to get something like that on a weekly basis that would be substantial. But as far as the time commitment on my end, it's no more than putting out a Facebook post. I'm just redistributing an image in another place and changing out some verbiage as from an active tense to a past tense.
But that takes time. Say if 4 districts and the mayor sends you information, it takes time to weed through all that and put it together, put it in sort of some kind of format. So that's my question. How much time and what's the budget?
Well, again, I can put that within the budget of time that I have on a weekly basis to whatever extent it needs to be to get done. But what I'm saying is I can streamline that process to try to not waste my time like anybody else's and put that into a form where just like anybody else that would adjust a newsletter, there's some items on there that are new and recent, and there's some that are outdated that you would remove and take off. I
All
hope
right.
I'm answering your question.
So you would do social media.
Correct.
All right. And then what's that other thing? Civic Plus?
Civic Plus, yes.
What is that exactly?
So that is our website that I believe that Travis Taylor, our IT director, uses to send out. That can be like Rave, which is the email. That can be the MJ Alert, and certain people have a certain amount of subscriptions to that. The city manager has a newsletter that has a lot of subscriptions, and parks will have a designated one, and other sorts. So
Would this include email?
I think that would be the primary function for its delivery for a newsletter.
And
Because, go ahead.
Would it be a sign up thing, or would you get the email list from some source?
It would be a sign up just like you do for MJ Alert. You'd go on the website, you create a profile, put your
Okay.
email in, and you would either click the cell phone or the email button to which way you want to receive those notifications.
Okay. I know for me, because I do one every month, and I know how time consuming it is. It's very time consuming. By the time you gather the information all month long, you email out, and you're waiting for email replies. You research, you search on social media forever and ever, trying to find a new restaurant, which the
Yeah.
city a lot of times don't know about, because these property managers of these little strip malls or whatever, they're responsible for leasing out the space. So we don't even know about it. So spending that time trying to find something new that's coming, spell check. And I know for my district, it's tailored toward my district, but, I have a few city things in there as well. And then on mine is voluntary as well for email. So I only do it if they ask. And it's also free. So this reason I was asking for the budget, and totally agree that the city needs to do this.
Yeah, the budget we have on it right now, I use through Canva, and it doesn't cost the city any extra money outside of the subscription we have with Canva. I know there's Constant Contact, which would cost a little bit more, but I think the elected body and city management would come up with the best resolution to get that news to people in the most convenient fashion without costing the taxpayers a lot of money.
Well, you said not a lot, but how much?
How much specifically for?
Constant Contact, some kind of email.
Yeah, I haven't specifically looked at all the options, but it's not going to cost an arm and a leg. I mean, it would probably be chalked up to resources that it takes to make a city newsletter look up to the standard that Mount Juliet has.
Well, the only problem I have with it is spending tax dollars to provide something that should be free. That's my biggest issue with it. So, or other people can speak if they want, and then I have a motion. Okay, go ahead.
Commissioner Justice.
Can it be done within the budget that you have now that exists?
Absolutely.
Okay. So there's no extra money it's going to have to be, there's not going to be a budget amendment or anything of that nature, correct?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
No, sir.
All right. As far as, email contacts, I mean, I would assume that I know the mayor's got probably a database. I mean, can that be shared with this? And be that database be pulled to the city so that, this could go out to his people as well?
That would be a Travis Taylor question, but I'm sure he could encourage his subscribers to join the city's already subscribed newsletter.
For the
outlet.
record, I have privacy standards that I maintain, and it is not sharing information that has been volunteered.
I'm just asking if there was an existing database, could it
It's
be
a
used?
commitment I've made to people when they've signed up.
Is
So
there any?
that's an issue to bring forward for anybody that already has a newsletter in existence.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking at. I mean, if there is an existing database, then, if I had an existing
If they have not
database-
opted in, it's called spam.
I'm sorry.
If they have not opted in, it's called spam.
You're the computer guy. I'm just asking questions here, trying to figure out the best way to move forward. I don't see anything wrong with this at all. I think what we have right now is we've got several different people sending newsletters out to the public, and some of the information probably should have gone through the city of Mountain Juliet originally, because the information has been not probably as accurate as it could have been in the past. I know it's happened 2 or 3 times, just because it's not, the constant contact is not there. So if the city's doing this and they say it's going to happen on X date at this time, well, if there is an update or a change in that, then the city's going to be able to put that forward. So we don't wind up with, commissioners or other people who may be putting out newsletters getting embarrassed needlessly. So, yeah, I think there needs to be a city newsletter. Should have been one a long time ago. I'm ready to vote on this. Can we just?
Commissioner Mullally?
I know we're not supposed to ask directly, but Mayor, I would like to know of the incorrect information that Commissioner Justice is referring to.
I have no idea. I don't know. It's like Facebook fact checkers or something. I don't know. We get into this.
No, I'm just talking about dates that change. Yeah. When, not necessarily yours, but I'm talking about the city has put out dates, and then they've been able to go back and go, oh, wait a minute, we've got to change this. Well, I do know for a fact that there was a date, something going on at Charlie Daniels Park, that you had put it out, and you were not aware that the city had changed the date. So you had to turn around and then correct what you had sent out.
Okay.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
You can lose that conspiracy theory. I'm not going after you on this one. All right.
Okay. I just want to make sure there wasn't any incorrect information in my newsletter, because if it was, I wanted to know what it was.
I mean, that's happened 2 or 3 times on your case, and I know of a couple of different times it's happened in others.
Well, yeah, dates get changed.
Hey,
Well, even the 3-way. I mean,
Nothing needs to be paranoid. We can move on. Tough question.
you have the floor.
yeah, I have the
Commissioner.
floor. Thank you. So there's not been any discussion about how often, where'd he go? Oh, about how often, whether it would be weekly, monthly, quarterly. Nobody's even suggested that.
Based on content and availability, I mean, I would not be opposed to quarterly. Mr. Martin, do you want to weigh in on this?
Yes, sir. I just think so. We got a substantial update. We used to do it quarterly when it was in written form.
Yeah.
Once a quarter. That gives them plenty of ample time and to make sure it's a hearty newsletter.
And I'm fine with that. And certainly not weekly.
All right. So if it's quarterly, I know that it would have to be things from the past, as it can't be 3 months in advance, right? Because we don't even know things that are going to be submitted to planning, for example. We don't know if new things coming, or so it would have to be information for the past 3 months each quarter, correct?
If it was quarterly, I've never had that where we've just done something quarterly. So you would have to get creative to figure out a need to send it. But I kind of my way of thinking with all social media is I try to be respectful of people's time. So I'd like to give them something new and engaging. I mean, I would try to send it out. It doesn't have to be exactly 3 or 4 months or whatever you all decide. It would kind of be on a need basis, as Kenny Martin said, hearty, where there's something substantial there that you want to read about and find out about, not just to send one, if that makes sense. But again, that's up to the elected body and what y'all decide. I'm here to serve.
Oh, okay. So it wouldn't be like a recurring thing. It would only be as needed.
That depends on what y'all do. But as you said, if there's one sent every 3 or 4 months, again, I'd want it to have something of value in it. So whatever way that is possible, that would be my job.
Okay. I'd like to motion that no taxpayer money be spent on the making of this, and it would only be to send out to post, in other words. Because I don't want any overtime. anything outside of regular schedule. If you think you can do this with your normal schedule, nothing
So,
over and beyond. I
Commissioner,
wouldn't-
the motion is no taxpayer money go into this or town?
outside of just merely posting.
Okay, I'll second that.
Well, right away, you got a conflict. Taxpayers pay for Justin Beasley's salary. So first of all, I can't, you mind if I have the floor?
Go for it, sir.
I'm blown away that this has become a debate to this extent. We're talking about putting communication out to the citizens of Mount Juliet from the city of Mount Juliet. And this has turned into we're not trying to compete with your newsletter. We're not trying to compete with the mayor's newsletter. You can continue to put your newsletters out. The frequency, let that fall on Mr. Martin and Justin Beasley's when they see fit. But the fact that we're having this extensive debate and these restrictions and all these questions is mind-blowing to me. We're talking about notifying the citizens of Mount Juliet of what the city of Mount Juliet has been doing and keeping them informed. Not everybody goes on Facebook. Not everybody gets a Facebook Live. People have emails. So when did this all of a sudden become this big controversy for the city of Mount Juliet to put out an official city newsletter? This is blowing my mind, honestly.
Well, I can add, this wasn't even on the agenda originally when it got, then it just appeared on here. So I'm just trying to play maybe catch up on what the need for speed was on this.
There's no defer it. I mean, I have no problems deferring it. I asked Ms. Luckett to add it. I think it was Wednesday, the same day that the packet was put out.
Published it and Kenny
But
approved
I
it.
think it was the same day. Yeah. So defer it if you want to defer it. I mean, I have no problems with that.
Commissioner Justice?
I have to completely 100% agree with Commissioner Hefner. We spend so much time up here majoring on minors and getting zero accomplished. And now he comes up with an idea to tell people in Mount Juliet what's happening in Mount Juliet. And we're having a 30-minute debate over something this simple. I think is kind of ridiculous. And I'm trying to figure out what the debate is all about when y'all are already putting out newsletters individually. Is there something wrong with the city of Mount Juliet putting out a newsletter? We're talking about you don't want to use taxpayer dollars. Well, I'm sorry, Justin, you get paid by the taxpayers. Rather, you work for the city of Mount Juliet residents. You're already a taxpayer item. Kenny is, Sheila, Jennifer, all of them. They're all paid for by taxpayers. I don't know what you're looking for. I don't know what kind of attention you're looking to get, but it ain't a debate.
Well,
it's ridiculous. I mean, either pass this. If you don't want to pass it, then defer it, as you said. This is just silliness.
Well, I think there was one thing in there that did concern me when it come to costs. It was the department heads were to supply the content, I think, for Mr. Beasley. I think the way it was worded. Maybe,
Say it again, I'm sorry.
Maybe wrong, but I think I'm looking at it here. The department heads were to supply the content for Mr. Beasley. Am I?
Oh, item 2. I think you can, I'm fine amending that to content. I mean, I'm open to modifying that language.
Okay.
I mean, we're not talking a dissertation. I can't imagine it would take somebody more than 15 minutes to put something together. I could be wrong, especially if we're doing it monthly.
Quarterly, I think is what we're talking.
Or quarterly. These are highlights. We're not making a newspaper here. We're not authoring a newspaper. We're authoring a newsletter. These are updates. We think this is going to be a drain on the city's budget to have our staff, department head, put together a 5-sentence, 1-paragraph update. Wow. Okay.
So we have an amendment on the table to Commissioner Mullally. We had amendment, you may have an amendment, no taxpayer funds to be spent on this other than for distribution purposes, correct?
Yeah. Outside of what your normal business hours, if you think you can do that in your normal business hours. So nothing beyond and just basically posting. I have brought out some valid points and asked some valid questions. So if you get your feathers ruffled over that and then take offense to it and think it's a debate, that's on you because it's not a debate. So I fully support this. Like I said, I think the city should be doing this basically free, other than the time that you would post it. So yeah.
All right, all in favor of the requirement for no taxpayer spending on here other than distribution in Mr. Beasley's time? Correct?
Correct.
All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Nay. So that fails. We're back to the resolution as presented on the agenda. Are you ready to vote, or was there appetite for deferral?
Well, okay, so if there's no limit on the taxpayer money, since that didn't pass, there's really no limit on taxpayer money, right?
Well, that would be a limit to the budget amount. I'm gonna make a motion to defer one meeting. I got that second from Commissioner Hefner. All in, any discussion on the advisement of deferral? All in favor of deferral for one meeting, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And we are deferred for one meeting by a vote of 3-1. And with that, that is the conclusion of our agenda tonight. So we're at adjournment. If there's no objection, we will stand adjourned. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.